Hello and welcome, everybody. I can't believe we're back. It's been virtually forever. Last time we did this was the 2017 awards, and it's 2018, so that should give you a rough idea of how long it's been. My name is Skim.
hmm
As always, I'm your host. Actually, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be your host. Small teaser. But I am joined, as always, by Steven. That will never change, I don't think. Hopefully, anyway.
Yep,
How's it going, Steven?
pretty good. What is up?
All right, we've missed a lot. Unfortunately, we can't talk about all of it, so we'll just go with the highlights. At the moment, there are a lot of highlights, so we'll pick the biggest ones. For now, though, let's focus on the Overwatch League. The inaugural season has begun. It's kind of weird that they call it the inaugural season after they've had the preseason already as well. It feels like they're trying so hard to prevent the term first season, right? It's like
hmm
they don't want to have it as the first season yet because they want to make sure that the first season is so much bigger than whatever.
hmm
But yeah, Overwatch inaugural season has begun. We've had what 2 weeks of play time?
Yeah, 2 weeks of play.
Yeah, 2 weeks of play. I don't really think there have been too many surprises in terms of top performance. If anything, maybe people were a little bit expecting Dallas Fuel to be better. I mean, they are 0-4 in 0-4 at the moment.
Yeah, and even then, like it's like one of those times where like the because of the way the league format works, like you run into like opponents at different times, so even the score of the league might give you a wrong understanding of how good a
Right.
team is. And in Field's case, that's arguably the case. I believe it's the case anyway, where like basically they ran into Dynasty, then they ran into like Houston, which is like one of the better foreigner teams.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna call it a foreigner team. They ran into London, like Valiant, which is arguably the best foreigner team. So they've had a rough schedule so far, but like even with that, there's obviously issues in the team and affect their star Korean player. Basically said the problem is they can't play dive, and the reason they can't play dive is they don't have those Korean tanks.
So basically, the solution to be good at Overwatch at the moment is just to have, or pretty much most
Have
esports
more
is just have
Koreans.
more Koreans.
Yeah.
Might not work for Valve-based esports, but for anything Blizzard-related or Riot, just have more Koreans.
Yeah. But even in like a Valve based esport, like literally there's only like 10 Korean guys playing Dota 2. Somehow five of them won a championship.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's pretty ridiculous.
that's
That's
how
actually
good the
more
Koreans are.
ridiculous. That's more ridiculous than Koreans dominating a game where like a shitload of them are playing, to be honest.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And in this case, like I think somebody actually just made a straight up stat where it's like the more Koreans you had, the more likely you were to have a higher score in the Overwatch League, and it's like a perfect linear line or something.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, goes to show. Anything that stands out to you from this Overwatch league season thus far, except for the fact that Shanghai, as expected, uh,
Shanghai is true trash,
true
and
trash.
yeah. Let's see. People were overhyping Boston, but I haven't really seen like because if you saw it, like Thorne and Monty did like a pre-show, and like everybody that went out to that pre-show was like, "Oh man, Boston's really good in scrims," and then when reality happened, they weren't as good. I
See, the funny thing
they
is, I think this happens in a lot of esports or like in a lot of like these competitions where
Mhm.
I don't want to say. I mean, we've had this discussion before. I don't want to take anything away from scrims and scrim results, but at the end of the day, it matters how you show up in professional games. I don't know. There's been so many Dota events at least where pro players go into the event. They're like, "Yo, Team X, they're like super hard in scrims. They're like, they're like the ballers, and they beat us every time." And then they just don't show up. Like that just
Yeah, and
happens.
then like the last major in CS:GO, we had Gambit, who had a historically terrible time at scrims, like literally won nothing. And like it was getting to the point where like top teams were actually considering stop playing them altogether, and then they won the fucking entire thing. So it's like
Hey, it happened
there's
to.
like
No, go ahead.
yeah, there's some little maybe there's some correlation, but you can't base it off of scrims, man.
Nope, for sure not. It happened in Dota as well. We had WG Unity, Boston
hmm
Major, lost 10
Oh
scrims in a row,
yeah,
and everybody was like, no, let's not scrim against them anymore. And then they beat OG, and suddenly everybody's knocking on the door. Hey, you want to scrim? It's quite hilarious for sure, but
I mean
maybe
that's actually
maybe Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying this actually happens to C teams a lot. I don't know why, but like whenever they go to a big event, they're usually pretty bad before the event, but then at the event, like they
They're
start playing out of their
so much
minds.
better. Yeah, they're so much better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, that
actually
makes
why
sense.
like it's actually why I've always given C a little bit more credit than normal than like the general evaluation, just because they show up, always have. And then as for the rest, everything else is going pretty similarly as to what you expect, right? I still think Jake from Houston Outlaws is probably overrated. I think only his Junkrat is really super top tier. And then beyond that, like Pine is really fucking good just on control.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. This is only 2 weeks in. Like, there's a lot of shit that can change, and I think Shanghai Dragon should just go all Korean route and buy out Runaway. Not even joking. Like, you got in 3 weeks, get Runaway. That's my answer.
Wait, can they even do any transfers in the first?
Yeah,
Like,
like the transfer opens up in stage 2.
yeah, in stage 2, yeah. But
Yeah,
obviously,
and
until
then
then, they have to wait it out.
until then they have to suck it up and die.
Yeah.
But yeah, my answer is get Runaway. If they don't get Runaway, if they want to stick to this Chinese formula, then they're gonna have to go. They're gonna have to do that thing everybody else told them to do, which is get Miraculous Youngster, which was like the only good Chinese team.
Well, for now, they're sort of the punching bag of the league, at least.
Yeah,
And
punching bag is like it's overrating them a bit because if you punch punching bag in the wrong way, you might hurt yourself a little bit. These guys, they would never hurt you. They're true pacifists.
they're like the expected walkover. Let's just put it that way, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, put it this way, Mayhem is the worst team in the league, and they got besides Shanghai, and they got 4-0'd by Mayhem. So there you go. What's that say about Shanghai exactly?
that's a good point. That's a good point. There's other things I guess we could talk about. I forgot his name already. XQC. The
Okay, yeah,
the player that got banned from pretty much the first stage, I think. Was it?
yeah. The rest of the first stage got banned.
First stage. From Dallas Fuel.
Yeah. Like, and the league itself banned him for like 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Forget how much.
Dallas Fuel effectively extended that ban.
Yeah, but it's like they're from two different orgs, so it's like
Yeah.
it's a difference.
He also has to pay like a $2,000 fine, which, according to him, he's gonna donate to an LGBT.
Yeah, he's gonna match the fine.
He's gonna match the fine effectively. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's worth noting that he did get fined, banned, whatever, because of certain comments from his stream. Which the comments themselves, I mean, the comment itself and the ban is not even, I don't think, that discussion worthy in my opinion. What I think is discussion worthy is the fact that his behavior afterwards, I think, is very hilarious to me. Like, you get banned, you get literally banned from both your own organization and the league itself for effectively misconduct, and then he goes on like a rampage on Twitter and on stream and just trash talks everybody. And he's like calling out people, like he's reinforces like tweeting something about, you know, training players and it's like PR effectively, and he's like, "Yo, how dare you fucking subtweet me?" And just because you're like an analyst, you don't do shit. And like, I don't know. And then he calls out Sir Scoots, calling Sir Scoots like a nobody that likes this stationed peek around the corner shitty game, and it's absolutely hilarious to me.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. He's got pretty sure he's got like a bit of a anger issue or something. We'll see how it goes, because like I will say this: you actually want this kind of personality if you end up being a superstar, because then you could be the villain, right?
Yes,
And
no,
nobody draws more attention than a villain. Like, that would be fucking fantastic, but I actually don't think he's that good, so it's not as interesting.
Exactly, that's the thing, because he doesn't have the skill to not necessarily to back it up, but to sort of like almost justify it in a lot of ways, like you said, because it would at least fill that villain role. It makes him just like a almost pathetic kind of like character that's just trying to get attention.
It's like it's more like a sad buffoon than it is like a hardcore villain. Like if 100 Thieves actually had played in the CS:GO major, they'd be like the perfect villains, because not only are they done like villainous kind of things,
they're at least
they're
good.
fucking good.
They're fucking good players. No, they're really good players. But obviously we'll talk about that, and of course the Elite Major in just a little bit. But I just wanted to mention XQC just to get that out there. I guess we.
Hmm.
No, let's leave that discussion for some time else.
Okay.
I had a different topic in mind, but that will just that's just too much at this point. I think that's it for the Overwatch League for me anyway. I don't really have anything else sort of like takeaways. Like you mentioned, it's just been 2 weeks in. I think we'll still see the big stories develop over the next couple of weeks, obviously, and the next couple of stages, if anything.
Yeah.
Um,
Like basically, Overwatch League is just a giant marathon.
yeah.
Like now that I know approximately how good the teams are, like I don't need to watch all the games, and I don't think you're supposed to watch all the games in a league format anyway. That's the way I think you're. That's the way it works in like NFA, NBA, and NFL and stuff like that. So
No, I
we'll
agree.
see. I mean, maybe if a bunch of teams change rosters and get more Koreans, it could be more interesting. But we'll have to see. I will say like the stuff out around it is pretty good. Like the production and then the extra sideshows, like they do like the recap and the watch point and stuff like that. It's pretty good.
No, I like that. Definitely. I think it adds a lot of not necessarily character, but it adds more depth to the entire uh, atmosphere. Is not the wrong word. It's just
The color of the color of the broadcast,
no.
maybe.
It just it just fleshes out everything because
Hmm.
the entire experience, that's the word I was looking for, the entire experience of the
Yeah.
Overwatch League is just, it feels like there's almost always something you can sort of experience if you want to like be invested into that league, right?
Hmm.
It obviously helps also that every player is pretty much streaming, or most of the players from the Overwatch League are streaming.
Yeah.
The social media accounts are very active. There's always content. It feels there's always content to devour if you're like if like you're like a really hardcore Overwatch fan, and thus you become like a very hardcore Overwatch League and like esports fan. I think there's always something for you to
To
watch, to
consume, right?
consume. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I think the cool part about this Overwatch League thus far. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It does have a lot more content compared to other games.
it does help obviously that Blizzard wants that content out there, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the big podcast, the Watch Point, whatever.
Hmm.
Or it's organized, or it's from Blizzard itself. There was a discussion on Twitter, or not really a discussion, but I think Sponge made a comment. Oh yeah, I hope other tournament organizers do this as well. But there was like a comment underneath like tournament organizers can't do that because it would have to compete with other tournament organizers, and obviously just having talent from like ESL can't just host like a podcast with their talent, because their talent is going to go on to just do other events, and then it doesn't really feel like it's just a very unique thing anymore, because they're obviously bound to other companies as well. But this, I mean, these are Overwatch League talent. Like this is just they're
Yeah,
representing
it's a
Blizzard at this
monopoly,
point.
right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah, so it's I agree on that point. Like it's hard for a tournament organizer to do it. And I'm not even sure if the ROI is there for a tournament organizer
no,
to do it.
I don't think so either.
Like I don't even think the ROI is there for Blizzard to do it. It's just they're investing in it now because they think it'll pay off eventually. Like that's their entire thing.
It
So
also sort of makes it easier mainstream for the mainstream to understand the sort of like magnitude of this league, but
yeah,
having not necessarily copy what like mainstream sports does, but having a lot of the same elements that
yeah,
mainstream sport has, like by just having them here, it makes it easier for people to understand. All right, so they're basically like your Shaquille O'Neal and your, I don't know
I d-
what their
uh,
panel is
Charles
called.
Barkley
Yeah, what? Yeah,
inside the NBA.
inside the NBA. That's what I was. Yeah, that was like. See, I don't follow NA
Yeah.
sports. I just know that it exists, and I knew the name at some point.
Hmm.
But yeah,
But yeah, it's
it helps that we have this, and that they can look at this and be like, all right, so if I want to know more about the Overwatch League and like more in depth discussion, like inside the NBA, I look at Watchpoint, right?
yeah. Hmm. Or in CS:GO, I guess you would get the beyond the numbers for Richard Lewis and Thorne. Like,
Well,
all right,
the thing is, yeah, I agree with you, and this is definitely if somebody asked me, I would probably point them towards that direction. But at the same time, it's not an official podcast,
yeah,
right?
it's not an official thing.
Um,
Like, it's not officialized by the entire league
yes,
in the same way. And
but anyway,
obviously, like they put way more resources into one than the other.
oh
So
for sure, for sure. But anyway, that's just it for the Overwatch League.
Yeah,
Again, we'll definitely talk about this as it
as
unfolds.
it develops. There's
Yeah.
still three. There's still three fucking stages, man. Nobody needs to fucking panic except for Shanghai.
All right, let's move on to the next, which is probably the biggest topic for tonight, even though it's the second already. It's ESL Facebook. I'm gonna call it ESL Facebook deal. So ESL signed an exclusivity contract, effectively, or had a deal with Facebook to exclusively stream all CS:GO and all Pro League
Hmm.
tournaments and all tournaments in the ESL One circuit on Facebook. It's important to note these specifications because this does mean that other products could technically still be streamed on Twitch, or technically will be streamed on Twitch still. So I
Yeah.
believe, if I understood it correctly, IEM is excluded from this. So effectively, any
Hmm.
IEMs would still be streamed most likely on Twitch, or
Yeah.
obviously could be subject to another broadcast deal. But for now, ESL One Genting, ESL One Katowice, the two biggest events in Dota at the moment, and then of course the Pro League and CS:GO are going to be streamed on Facebook, or have been streamed on
Yes.
Facebook, or have been streaming on Facebook
Will
for
be
Genting.
streamed on Facebook. I
Yeah,
think Genting's the first of
Genting
the
is the
all of them.
first. Genting is the first.
Hmm.
Obviously, this doesn't sit well with too many people. I don't think esports consumers do very well with exclusivity and other platforms or platforms that aren't Twitch. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of there's been a lot of complaints, to say the least.
Just a few. Just a few.
All right, Steven. First of all, how do you feel about this deal? Let's just talk it. I mean, let's just approach it as a first esports sort of like big news announcement kind of like approach, right? Let's just say they just announced it. How do they feel about this as a
Okay.
from a business or esports sort of like? I mean, you and I were. I think we can consider ourselves as part of the industry, as people inside the industry. So how,
Okay.
from your perspective, how do you feel about this deal?
Well, obviously, like first, I have to remove my kind of distaste for Facebook aside, just because they have a lot of invasive policies in general,
Right.
like that creepy video thing. Is one of them. Obviously, they're always going to sell your information if they can get it,
No, for sure.
stuff like that. Um, Moving that aside, though, you have to recognize the fact that Facebook has a huge reach in esports, particularly in I feel like SA and SEA regions in particular. So that's something you have to consider. And then the other point you have to consider is that there everybody fucking knows that there's no way in hell that Facebook viewers would ever match Twitch stream viewers. So you have to assume there's like a certain level of competency for ESL, which I don't think anybody in Dota 2 Reddit or CS:GO Reddit has. Like assume that there's a level of competency there, because like obviously they all know the viewership is going to go down,
Right. Of
but they
course.
did it anyway. So you have to suspect that not only are they getting a lot of money, but they think this is worth the gamble or the risk for everything else, and the fact that they have sponsors going along with them means those sponsors also agree that this is worth the gamble or the risk.
Right, and obviously that their investments are still sort of like for them themselves worth it.
Yeah.
Which, ironically enough, or funnily enough, one of the go-to comments that I see, I will note that I've read for like the first 24 hours of ESL One Genting being streamed on Facebook. I've read the comments and then I've removed Reddit from my bookmarks to make sure I don't visit that website for the next week or so because it's very
It's gonna be all ESL
it
hate.
hurts my brain to read those comments. So one of the biggest complaints is, and let's just address like the biggest complaints, right? Let's just
All
address the
right.
biggest complaints. So um, one of them is, well, I guess we should start with the fact that the whole Valve allows everybody to stream anywhere. I guess that's the biggest thing that people are currently arguing about.
Yeah.
Let's just begin there. I actually wanted to go somewhere else, but let's just begin there. That's the biggest thing.
Okay.
I think ultimately, and this is effectively what currently the esports law guy Bryce Bloom, like he has like his own esports agency, and
Yep.
he did like a good write up on Reddit, and I'm sure people will have read it at this point, and if not, I will think about linking it. Hopefully, effectively he says, or he breaks down the the copyright process, like how can a copyright claim be made, and like the context surrounding it. But I think the important note in all of his, or in his entire post, which is quite lengthy, is the fact that ultimately Valve's statement that they've made a couple of months ago is still very vague. And that's
Yeah.
why the situation right now exists where ESL, if they even wanted to, I mean, there's a little bit of confusion as well if in regards to how many streams they've actually taken down or not.
Hmm.
They can take down whatever they want because that statement is so vague. They can
Yeah.
interpret it in so many different ways, and I know that our Dota 2 wants to interpret it in the way that their
They
favorite
want.
streamer, yeah, they want effectively that their favorite streamer can stream it as long as he doesn't have the overlays. But like Bryce Bloom pointed out, there's also the way to interpret it and, well, we have an exclusive deal. This is competing with that deal. This is competing with our content, with our stream, with our product. We'll take it
Yeah.
down. And I
Yeah. That's
understand
actually.
Twitch wanting to, or Twitch willing to comply with those takedowns as well, because obviously, I mean, they're a streaming platform and they've literally been in the same boat as Facebook at some point, right? Where their streams have been restreamed, or there have been competing streams on YouTube and Facebook, and
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
That's like you. Basically, Bryce just hit it on the head. It's like so ambiguous. You could go any way you want it, and so like you can have like the entire community like go in uproar, but the fact is like the wording itself doesn't necessarily like indicate that assuming it's ESL, that what ESL is doing by banning these streams is even in the wrong. It could ESL's like interpretation of that entire thing could be right, and how would we know,
exactly.
right? Like
And that's
that's
why,
that's why you can't bring it up because it's not really a point.
yes, I know why people want to bring it up, but I think it is fair to say that the fact that we're having this discussion, in my opinion, alone already should be proof enough that it's very ambiguous wording.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but well, that's just one of the points. The other point is, of course, that Facebook is an inferior platform to Twitch, which
Yeah.
yet again I don't think is a valid argument. I mean, I think one of their when they had the press release, one of their I think they even said that they would effectively grow the platform together with Facebook in terms of being able to obviously ensure the quality of the stream, having 1080 60p or 60 fps streams
Yeah.
available, and then of course just in general being able to serve as many viewers as possible, making sure there's no lag and that kind of shit. And obviously there's issues in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but that's always been the case for any streaming platform, really. I
Yeah.
understand why people are like, why didn't you go to like a streaming platform that's already established? But at the end of the day, it is also a learning experience for Facebook to grow their streaming platform because they don't know. I mean, they've never had like a big stream or big like gaming stream like this, like a big esports stream, right? They need to
Yeah.
learn how
Mm-hmm.
to properly cater to this audience and to this sort of like need in the first place. So I feel
Yeah.
like this is obviously a testing run for them, and it sucks that Genting is sort of suffering underneath it. But I'm actually pretty convinced that it's going to be much better going forward.
Yeah. I don't really have a problem in particular with the stream. I will say, Div basically said like the problem with I haven't tested it myself because I don't watch games on mobile, but she basically said like the Facebook stream problem is like the mobile problem, like their mobile streams aren't as good as Twitch or something. Not
Well,
exactly sure
the
if that's the
mobile, I've
case.
definitely noticed it as well that the mobile experience is very, it can be laggy, but at the same time, I've again had this exact problem with Twitch as well.
Yeah, Twitch.
Um,
I know Twitch actually had a bunch of problems with that too. So it's
yeah,
like it's hard. It's hard for me to like come to a conclusion because I actually like sidestep this entire problem in general. Like if I'm watching at home, if it's a stream, I'll just like
yeah.
pipe it through like Streamlink, which gets rid of all the buffering issues and all the ad issues.
Oh,
Or if I'm really like if I really can't get into there, I just use Dota TV, right? Like
yeah. That's for me one of the big issues as well. The fact that so many people seem to be keen on like boycotting this event when I understand some of the concerns, like you said. There's people have a right to be concerned about Facebook as a company in general, and maybe
mhm.
not wanting to support it, or at the very least being very opposed to the idea of like or the their their policies, but at the same time, you, why wouldn't you still want to support the event in general? Like watch
Hmm.
Dota TV, like you said, you can still watch the VODs. Um,
Yeah,
there's
like
been some fantastic games, like each Fnatic versus Vici game 2, when they had the Mega Creeps. That was a fantastic game, like 88 minutes long, super back and forth. I don't know, it was a crazy
eternal
game.
and eternal envy in his fucking element. Apparently, like I haven't actually seen the game, but 91 minutes. That's like an eternal envy game, I bet.
He had struggling closing or closing out the game for sure. But at the same
Yeah,
time, it was also just VG Gaming just like holding on and like being super stubborn and getting the right
yeah.
pickoffs, and I don't know, it was just a super fun game, and ultimately
Hmm.
that had like 4,000 views or viewers or something, which at least on the stream. Which, by the way, as according to somebody from ESL, one of their,
That only counts logged in Facebook
yes,
users. Doesn't count anybody else.
only logged in Facebook users that are also on the stream and not on the embedded one. So if you're
Hmm.
watching an embedded stream, for example, on ESL1.com or on joindota.com, you wouldn't count as a viewer. So I
Yeah,
think Facebook has like another way of counting those, but they're not displaying it yet.
yeah. And then I was using the ESL one for a little bit. Like that one had like 30,000 viewers. So
Yeah,
obviously, like the numbers are kind of weird. So can't take the numbers too seriously until they come out later.
yeah. That's which is also, by the way, sort of like taking out the wins out of some of the bigger arguments. You're like, oh, you. Well, to be fair, I do think it was a stupid idea from ESL to make an actual statement regarding the expected decline in viewership. Like using an actual number, I thought was a stupid idea. Saying that, oh, we
Uh,
expect to lose 10 to 50% viewers. I don't know. It just opens you up to a lot of criticism. But at the same time, obviously, that criticism isn't necessarily warranted because we don't know how many viewers they lost effectively.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, we all knew it was coming. Like I don't think there was anybody in the world who'd be thinking, oh yeah, most of them. Well, we will no man. No, most of these guys aren't willing to like fucking click on like a headline. They're like they just look at the headlines. Oh look, it's a headline. I'm not gonna watch the interview. I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna comment on it. Like that's where we are now as a community. So it's like you're really expecting somebody else to like switch platforms. It's pretty unlikely.
Yeah. Well, what else? What are the other big complaints? Um, I don't know. In general, there's just a lot of stupid arguments being made now about the pro circuit in general and how things should go back to the to. Obviously, this isn't necessarily an issue regarding this deal in specific, but I do want to talk about it in general. But yeah, people are like
Okay.
bringing up the idea of, oh, the pro circuit in general is like a stupid idea. Like bring back the Valve event, like
Valve
the
majors.
Valve majors, which
No, that's actually. I'll go ahead and say that's a mistake. Like the pro, it doesn't. There's a reason it kind of works in CS:GO, but it doesn't in Dota 2. Um, but I'm not exactly sure why that's the case. It's just how Dota 2 players are. It's how the community is, and like nobody's ever been able to find a way to monetize it during that kind of season. And there's a reason why like, a bunch of these tournament organizers are now coming in now that it's been more freed up. But if you went back to that, then at that point, every tournament organizer would get out. A bunch of like sponsors would be like less interested. This in turn would affect the teams, and then you basically just get like 3 tournaments a year, and that's it.
yeah, that's definitely one of the big issues as well with the sort of like the previous model where we had Valve run events, and people don't realize that Valve actually needed organizers as well, like ESL, PGL, to
Hmm.
run these events in the first place as well. And I don't know, it just I mean you can already see how many events we already have in this pro circuit season. I don't think
It
this would
already
have.
it already dwarfs to like last year by
Yeah,
a lot.
I don't think we would have a Dota major or a Dota event at IEM Katowice if it hadn't been for the pro circuit.
Yeah, I
I
agree with
legitimately
that.
don't think. I
Like,
obviously
because there was never any before that.
well, it
Like,
does help that League of Legends is now out of Poland effectively, or out of the IEM circuit.
yeah, it helps a bit, but it's like there's there was no reason to add it right until
Exactly,
now.
exactly. There was no reason to add it until now. We also have like a much bigger sort of like. I mean, we have 16 teams at Genting. We've never had that many teams for like a small event. Like, I mean, I say small, even though it's still like 300,000 prize pool or something.
Yeah,
But it like ESL One had previously just like 8, 10 teams for Dota, but now
and
we
that
have
was
like
like considered a bigger tournament too. So it's
exactly,
like
and now
you're getting more, you're getting better, you're getting the teams to play each other way more often in
yeah,
this version. And isn't that what people want? I don't know what people want, but
effectively. we
That's what I
we're
would want.
we're getting like a huge DAC event again. Yeah, we had that last time as well, but at the same time, a lot of people uh, assumed that the reason DAC happened last time was because so they could run a major again. Because you can't just come out of the woodworks and just immediately host a major. I mean, I say that even though Galaxy Battles technically came out of the woodworks and did one, but they also had to run a previous event first to run a major.
Hmm.
Then we have the huge major from PGL and Perfect World also towards the summer. Like, there's so many events now being hosted that I am very sure would have never happened if it wasn't for the pro circuit. And
Yeah.
we have the Bucharest major, which is huge as well. Like, we're seeing so many. We have a DreamHack minor, for God's sake. DreamHack
Yeah.
always just ran the Dream League season, and now they're
Yeah.
running most likely an additional season this year just to have another minor.
Yeah.
It's just these things just would have never happened if it wasn't for the pro circuit. And yeah, we have, like, obviously it does force companies like ESL to invest more money because I've actually talked to some people that both may or may not have been working with ESL, but also have been working with people that have been working with ESL. And I don't know, I've heard so many stories about how tournaments are making just straight up losses every event because you have to match the prize pool limit
Hmm.
set by, or not limit, but the guidelines set by Valve. So suddenly, if you were running a 100,000 tournament, you want to host a minor, you have to at least put 150,000. And then you have to
Yeah.
accommodate at least 6 teams, obviously, but still you want to run a big event, so you're still going to run like 8 team events. But these teams come from different tournament like regions as well. So suddenly, instead of flying in only 4 European teams and and 2 Chinese teams and maybe an SEA team, now you have to fly in an SA team as well, which it does add up these costs, right? You have to run
Yeah.
qualifiers for like every region, which adds just costs to the casters. Uh, Contrary to popular
Housing.
opinion, casters for qualifiers actually do get paid, and they get paid a
Yeah.
lot, or they get
They can
paid
pay decently.
decently, at least enough to to definitely to noticeably increase the costs for running these qualifiers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just increases the cost so much to have these tournaments now. Obviously, also the the standards set by Valve with their majors for like player treatment are so high that it actually
Hmm.
even affects CS:GO now. Like CS:GO
Yeah.
last time they tweeted out, or like the players are like, "Wow, we have our practice rooms inside our hotels." Well, you have to thank Valve for that because they first established that in
Yeah.
Dota, and now every tournament organizer effectively has to do something along those lines to even ensure invites. Like, people otherwise wouldn't come if you didn't make sure that the practice areas were like super close to their own hotel rooms as well.
Yeah. And then the point is like that's one of the reasons why you can't go back to the old system because like remember that Galaxy Battles thing where everybody was complaining about, oh man, they're living in fucking shacks or whatever.
Yeah,
Here's the point: nobody else. If we go down this route where like uh, ESL decides to pull out because they can't monetize it, and everybody else can't eventually is going to pull out because they can't monetize it. Nobody else is going to do this, and so you're not going to get any tournaments because like the cost of creating these tournaments and then isn't there, and then like there isn't even like a belief in like the ROI will eventually show up because everybody else has already tried it and failed. If assuming this fails, right?
right.
In which case, just gonna have a bunch of smaller tournaments. You might have an online into an on-land tournament, but that's gonna be pretty small too. I'm not even sure that would even cover the costs, to be honest. And then on top of that, you're gonna get like a bunch of more shady orgs who would be like, "Oh yeah, we have a huge tournament," and then they just steal the money and run. Like,
Yeah. And yeah, you could say, well, at least we'd have the Valve majors or Valve events then, but these events haven't been perfect either all the time. And obviously, they aren't just like Valve isn't making them because they have too much money. They are making them because they think it's worth the money. But obviously, I think, or rather, that money doesn't come out of nowhere. That money
mm-hmm.
comes still from the users' pockets. That's why they have to monetize like battle passes every time. Valve hasn't been forced to release a battle pass up until now because they don't have to pay jack shit up till now. They only have
Mm-hmm.
to match the prize pools, which I say only, but that's like a fraction of the cost they would have to pay otherwise if they had to like actually organize these events themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just I don't know why R Dota 2, and yeah, I'm gonna point out R Dota 2. Yeah, I could say most of R Dota 2 or the vocal majority. No, I'm gonna call all of you fucks. They're just so against, or they're so for monopoly. They're like, I literally seen a comment say, he hates exclusivity, and whenever like publishers do this, he would always like never support it. So he'll only watch Twitch streams now instead of Facebook. He doesn't even realize the fucking irony that Twitch has a monopoly in the streaming department. They have
Mm-hmm.
exclusive deals as well with a lot of tournament organizers, right? That's why they're on
Yeah.
Facebook or YouTube streams of certain events, because they also have these deals. It's just that Twitch is obviously the most convenient platform. That's why you don't notice it. It's so annoying. And then, I don't know. People are like, oh, why can't it just be Valve? I love the fact that we have competition now. I mean, look at the talent. We have people like Trent at a minor or pro circuit event, like a huge event. Valve
Yeah.
completely hate. We have Pimp Muckle. People have been like saying, "Oh, Valve, why you don't like Pimp Muckle? Like he's the best observer." And now he's getting
Doesn't
invited to
matter.
these big events. It doesn't matter because Valve is not part of that process anymore, and people should be
Like
happy that Valve is not part of that process anymore.
like if people were serious about wanting Too Good, this is like the only way you might ever get him back.
Exactly. That honestly, I feel like that's the only way Valve or ESL could redeem themselves in the eye of the public. If they just suddenly invited Too Good as like the surprise guest host or something, I'm pretty sure they would get like a shit ton of viewers or something. I don't know.
Yeah. They won't get a shit ton of viewers. They just get a bunch more like goodwill, or maybe they would
Yeah.
all turn out Too Good. I don't know. Um, but like basically, Valve. It's not like Valve is actually a true meritocracy. If we're talking about the way they hire casters or the way they hire talent,
Definitely not. Look,
like even like you already pointed out, Pit Knuckle is the best observer. Yeah, he is. He has been for a long time. Never seen him in a Valve event, have we?
No.
Like, and it doesn't even make sense because it's not like you need for an observer role. It's not like you need a huge following. It's not like you need to have that charisma on the panel. Like I can explain why they chose Day 9 or they chose Machine, right? Because they bring things elements to the broadcast
Right.
that not necessarily Dota 2 talent may not necessarily have, but nobody brings what Pimp Knuckle brings, and they still didn't hire him. Like, come on, guys.
it
Like, this is the only way you're gonna get somebody that good.
100%. And you know, the fact that he doesn't get invited to events actually stifles innovation in the production department, because while he's obviously an observer, I think his biggest appeal at the moment is being like the CEO of Layerth and effectively pushing production innovation. And him getting invited to events actually pushes the like the boundaries of what he can do and what ultimately Dota production will be able to do, because he's the only one doing it aside from PGL. And quite frankly,
Yeah.
PGL, like, they run like 2 events a year maybe, so their like innovation just comes in waves, like, or rather in like waves. It's just like once or twice every year. But Pitmuckle's like gradually bringing it to like event after event. And if it wasn't for him, we just, for example, the what's it called, the I mean, there's little things, right? But just seeing what the Korea had in his inventory when he died, it's like, it's such a small thing, but if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have that. And there's so many
Yeah.
things that Valve just takes from from community creators, like the fight recap, which was BTS, for example. But at least they invited K-pop to TI. They didn't invite
Yeah.
Bitbuckle. So honestly, I'm so glad that Valve isn't part of that process anymore, because this does feel more like people are getting invited based on merit, really.
Yeah. It's closer to merit. And this also applies to the Dota 2 teams themselves, because every time we've gone into a Valve major in the last 2 years, like not counting this year, obviously, it's always been kind of iffy if a team was actually that good, just because you don't have the record of them being that good. Maybe they fell off in between because there were like long weeks or months in between, and like maybe a team could have fallen off in that time. We don't know, right? But in this tournament circuit, we fucking know if somebody's gonna fall off. Like, we know LFY is fucking dead, even though they were like one of the better teams.
Yeah.
But now we know they're fucking dead.
And you also just, in general, you know what it like, what merit or what warrants participation at TI, because previously it wasn't sure. Is like, how important is the major going into TI? How important are the previous months going to TI? How important is the entire season for a TI invite? How important is previous performances in like previous years? Like, does it matter that the Lions won like TI3, for example? Fuck no. It doesn't matter. It just matters how many points you have. And
This year, right? Like,
already
I like that so much more. Like,
Yeah.
I love that so much more.
even like, aside from the whole fact that it obviously, like, justifies or basically gives us proof why these teams are invited. It just forces these teams to play as well, which is, I think, is the biggest part. Like right after TI, we see the TI champion participate in like 4 LAN events. When's the last time that has happened?
Pretty rare.
They're actively participating in so many events just to secure the points. Same for Secret as well. Obviously, like the top teams are continuously competing. Maybe VP isn't competing in as many events as they could probably, but we still see the top teams at event after event. And this is one of the things that I've always disliked about the Dota 2 scene, and I've always been jealous of in CS:GO. In CS:GO, you see the top teams competing against one another on a very regular basis. You can draw the comparison between SK and FaZe because you've seen them, or you can you can write the storyline between them as well because you've seen them compete numerous times. We can go into this E-League major and be like, wow, I'm so looking forward to that matchup again because we saw that in group stage. Obviously, they beat each other, and then in the previous event, they like lost that many finals against them. In Dota, how often can I talk to you about how, I don't know, Secret and Liquid have faced? Up until this season, not a lot. In this season, they fucking faced and got them a Dream League season already. They're pretty much facing each other in every big LAN event, which is, I think,
Yeah, they basically played like 3 times. They've already played like 3 or 4 times before I even wrote like the Puppy Karaoke Epic.
Yeah,
And that article doesn't exist if they don't play that many times because
exactly.
I don't think they would ever get to the point where like there's a legitimate rivalry between them if this tournament format didn't exist. Because like in the old one, it'd be like, oh look, Liquid won like 2, but they also have a TI and Secret just won 1. Is that really a rivalry? Not really.
Exactly. And a lot of times when you do want to draw the storylines in Dota between those rivalries, a lot of times you have to add like an asterisk. By the way, half of these encounters will with like a completely different roster than right now, right? But right now you can look at them and be like, well, this season they've already faced each other like 5 to 7 times. They've had this record, and you can see like the meta, how it like was part of the matchup and that kind of stuff. You can even add multiple teams to that equation. Be like, well, the trifecta of VP, Liquid, Secret, everybody has already beaten each other. And then if you add the fourth team, Newbie, which I actually kind of wanted to write about, Newbie has yet to
Man,
beat,
I don't.
Newbie has yet to beat one of these 3 teams, and that's why I think they obviously there's a
That's why
topic
they're
for
always
them.
top 4.
That's why they're always top 4, but that's all they're never going to be top 3.
Yeah, that's also why I keep saying they should have changed members like up to a year ago. I was like, gotta change, please change.
But yeah,
But it's too late. Big God is already created.
You got detoured a little bit. That's just part of the reason, or this is just a huge argument for why the pro circuit is good, and why it's important for these third-party organizers to host these events. And obviously, that's why why the Facebook deal in general I think is good. Even also the Mercedes deal, like it's just a lot of money for ESL to run these.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with the Mercedes deal. Like that one was ridiculous. That was truly ridiculous. Like, listen, I can understand if you're like pissed off about like going from Twitch to Facebook, but like it was literally it's just like a Mercedes deal. It's just an ad. Just turn off the stream or mute it if you don't want to listen to it.
I don't get it either.
That one was ridiculous.
I don't get it either. They like some of the reaction was as if they like were showing ads between games and basically you wouldn't be able to watch the games. But no, there was just literally between games. Was it maybe extended breaks to make space for those breaks? Maybe, yeah. But at the same time, what? It's still a free fucking tournament. This is this is, by the way, obviously the biggest deal that I haven't seen a lot of people mention, by the way. Like the people that are arguing against this Facebook entire like thing, right? A lot of them don't mention the fact that this is effectively the last step to prevent pay-per-view or paid content. Like broadcasting rights is the biggest step for tournament organizers to prevent paid services, or because this is so much money, untapped money at this point. Because only for like the last, I want to say 2 years now, we've had like really big broadcasting deals involved. Previously, you couldn't even go to a different service to ask, hey, you want to pay us to stream exclusively on our platform. You had to go with Twitch. You could be you could count yourself lucky if you got a lot of money out of it. Most of the times you didn't really. But now there's actually competition, and that's where the money comes in. And obviously, ESL thought that Facebook offered enough money to justify losing their viewers. So be it. But I'm kind of thrilled for esports that we can. I mean, if we suffer now, and we maybe have like a couple of tournaments where we don't have as many viewers, and maybe the stream quality is still subpar. If we suffer now, but at the end of year 2018, I can say I don't see a difference between watching content on either YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, because right now I don't see a difference between YouTube and Twitch already in terms of viewing experience.
I think YouTube's actually better.
Probably, yeah, YouTube is definitely better actually because you can rewind. That's a huge deal
Yeah.
for me. Um, but yeah, if I, at the end of 2018 I can say I don't see like a big difference between the three of them, I think that ESL is a goddamn genius already. Because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here, or we wouldn't
Yeah.
technically be there. So I'm very happy that ESL is doing this deal. Do we maybe have subpar tournaments in the next couple of weeks, maybe even months? Perhaps, but even watching the streams, I personally didn't really have like a. If anything, the problem for me wasn't actually the stream, but did you see the panel on from ESL? They have like this
No.
ridiculous video wall behind them, which is just
Okay.
it's just so close to the camera. It looks so odd. It looks like I don't know. Just looks so weird. It doesn't make any sense. It's so huge. You don't even actually see the entire video wall all the time either. It's stupid. So that's, if anything, the biggest gripe for me. I know that, or I think that once it goes to the arena, people hopefully at least will forget and just be hyped by the event, because Southeast Asian fans, as we know, are crazy.
Yeah. And then one final note is, listen, I don't really care if, actually I think it's fine if you criticize like tournament organizers, teams, players, whatever, right? But like the reaction to this isn't really a criticism. It's more like outrage and like an emotional response to things you don't want, but you don't really have an explanation. You just like kind of hurl insults. Like, oh man, these ESL guys, they don't know shit about business. Like, come on, guys. They've been doing this for like over a decade. They're literally I'd say at this point they are the biggest tournament organizer in esports.
Oh, for sure.
I'm pretty sure they know a thing or two.
Yeah.
Like, give them some leeway, give them some credit. And then having said all that, I did watch the PPD stream over the ESL stream, but let's be clear, this is because PPD is like one of the all-time great minds of Dota 2, and also he's like one of the most eloquent minds of Dota 2. So it's like, I'd watch him over anybody else anyway.
No, 100%.
So,
I agree with you. And I think if the stream is there, I'm not gonna discourage people from watching it. I mean, they're free to choose, obviously, but I think it's worth respecting the fact that if the streams are being taken down, that ESL wants to obviously have their right to.
yeah, they have the right because Valve let them. Like, if you're gonna be pissed at somebody, be pissed at Valve.
Yeah,
you can be pissed at ESL. You can also be pissed at Twitch.
Definitely,
like, there's plenty of people to get. You can be pissed at. You can be pissed at everybody in this scenario, but like everybody's just blaming ESL for, and that's it.
They're even blaming the casters at this point, which I thought was really hilarious.
That one was ridiculous. Like, what do you expect the casters to do?
I've not even seen a single comment from the casters supporting Facebook. Like, they're just like, I think the only comment from one of the casters has actually been Nahaz. I guess no. Actually, Red Eye also tweeted something, but none of them were like actually like actively supporting Facebook or like the deal in general. They were like explaining effectively what the deal meant, and I think that's the important part, because people definitely don't seem to realize what the deal or the idea of the deal is.
That was a mistake, because they thought they were talking to reasonable people.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
They were talking to like emotionally charged people who didn't want to hear anything. So
that's why I had to stop reading the subreddit, man. It was hurting me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've talked enough about this topic. I'm sure there'll be lots more to talk about at some point, because people will keep pitchforking. But I think for now, most of the facts, or not necessarily the facts, but most of the ideas and arguments have been laid out by both sides. I'm sure ESL will come forward with it. Oh, actually, there's one thing I do want to point out. I think a lot of this could prevent it, or at the very least been sort of contained, if ESL had, after the deal came out or was official, had come out and properly took their time to address it in public by themselves. Like, obviously they had the press release, but they never really addressed it, like they never addressed the community, it feels. And I think, look, it sounds ridiculous, but I do think it's important to actually tell these people, literally from your perspective, what it means to have this deal, because a lot of people just seem to think that ESL is just hoarding the money. They're like, wow, you're like money hungry people, like, in the casters are sellouts and whatnot, but I don't even think, and I know that ESL probably couldn't reveal any numbers because of the sponsors, but I do think it's important to note, to point out that these, like, they're huge net losses, a lot of these events, and people just don't know that.
Yeah, I think it's really obvious they're making net losses, but I mean, look, I'm not a true industry insider in the fact that I've never really talked or been to any of these events, but if you just look at the raw numbers, it doesn't make sense how you're making the money back, because you're flying over 80 to 90 staff players, and then their managers and coaches. Like some of them have those, and they demand they get flown over. Then you have the housing requirements.
At
Then you
least
have
4-star hotels at this stage.
yeah
You can't
housing
even,
requirements. Yeah,
because
it's like
you need, you need to host your own staff as well. If you're in a remote city, you know, to host your own staff as well, which is at least like 20, 30, 40 people again.
yeah
You need to rent stadiums, venues. Then in addition to the housing, you obviously need to, you know, have like practice areas, which is most of the time the same as the housing, you know, hotel rooms again.
yeah.
Like you said, I think if you're just going by the numbers, how can you ever expect them to actually profit off of these, like directly? Obviously, it's an investment into the future and like into
Yeah,
future
like
profits.
my estimate without knowing much about this, about how much money goes into like production or all that stuff, it's like it should be at least 1 to 2 million just to run an event, and that's not even considering like additional problems. Like for instance, if you run an event in America, you're gonna have to pay the union extra money for overtime. Guess what? Every fucking Dota 2 tournament runs into overtime. Like every one of them. I
Yes.
don't know if that's the case for like SEA, but definitely in America, you're gonna be paying a shitload of overtime.
Yeah.
And
No.
they like union workers in America are like literally like they extend the work. They like have like 4 guys move a ladder or some shit.
No. 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 To be fair, that's also one of the reasons why we see a lot more events in Southeast Asia, because it's vastly cheaper to
Mm-hmm.
host events there. You know,
Yeah,
for a variety of reasons. But in general, no, it's definitely very expensive to run these events, and yeah, they have a lot of sponsors on stream. But guess what? The reason why they have a lot of fucking sponsors is because they need that money as well. It's not like these sponsors are just raining in like billions of dollars. Even though
mm-hmm.
Mercedes is a big brand, don't expect them to just drop like $10 million on this and just be
Yeah.
like,
They would never
"Yo,
do that. Like, there's a reason they're a big brand. It's because they're smart with their money.
yeah,
Like, come on. Um, I will say one last thing. It's actually so typical of ESL to not be able to control the
yes,
public reaction. Like,
yes."
like at this point, I don't know if he would do it, but I definitely have like ESL hire like MLG Adam as a consultant and teaching them how to like talk to the Dota 2 community
No, hundred
because
percent.
he was fucking amazing when he was part of it.
I think a lot of people that, or pretty much everybody that was around at the time, would love MLG to just run another event again, because the way that Adam made the community feel, this is gonna sound so like emotional, but the way he made the community feel about the event was just as if it was an event ran by the community almost.
Yeah,
Because
I don't know how he did it. He
yeah,
was so good at it.
he
It's clearly
invited
obvious he.
Speak Gaming. Like, I think that alone won him MVP of the year at that point. Inviting
Yeah,
Speak Gaming as a like 11th team, adjusting the format, or you know, adjusting the schedule and everything. It's just these things that he just did right. Just, and that's one of the things that I think that ESL should have done. Just get on top of this beforehand, because before the Columbus started, he just immediately addressed the community. He's like going into forums, going into Reddit, just asking people like, "What do you want out of this event? Like, what are your expectations? How do you feel about these decisions? How do you feel about this pricing?" ESL just like retroactively, they're like, "Yeah, we'll do better." Like, you know, whatever, I
like
guess.
it's tough, man, because like ES. I will say this: ESL kind of got lucky. They buried the hatchet with Thorn. And Thorn's like much more reasonable. It
Oh,
can explain this
if
shit, but like,
about
my
2 years
God.
ago, or like about 2 years ago, this would have been a vastly different Twitter conversation, I believe.
Hmm.
But no, I see. That's the thing. That's the thing, by the way. You can really tell how people like the if I don't know how many non-industry folks you're following on Twitter, but that are still involved in esport or like invested into esports, right? But I think that's how you can tell that people aren't part of the industry, because like I don't know how not seen a single person that's part of the industry not being on the side of ESL effectively in this
Hmm.
conversation. But the people that aren't part of this industry, they're like the raw consumers. They're like very angry with ESL. They're trying to be understanding, but they're very angry with ESL. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've talked enough about this as well. Again, I'm sure there's going to be lots more to talk about in the future once ESL has come out with a couple of statements, which I expect them to do. It would be like ESL to just come out after Genting and be like, let's talk about this or something, or like, let's talk about things from our perspective. Definitely feels very ESL to do this afterwards, or maybe Flying DJ will just make some snark remarks on Twitter or something. Either
Uh-huh.
way, there's a topic for the future now. So let's continue with Dota. I don't really think there's anything else general esports related that we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk Dota. So let's go with a topic that we kind of talked about in the awards, and actually, did we talk about that? I think we semi skipped it because obviously, you know, we were gonna do this show. But EG, the roster shuffle. I guess we can
Yeah.
include the Fnatic as well because obviously
Yeah, because they're part of it
they're
now.
part of it now.
They're part of it now.
So let's talk about this. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who live under a rock, EG have replaced long-term offlaner Universe, and they hired or acquired rather Misery as the new
Yes.
captain of the team. Effectively, he'll play support, and that moves Fear into the carry position, Arteezy into the mid position, and then Sumail into the offlane position.
Yes.
Supposedly, this was Sumail's idea. Sumail himself and also Fear in interviews said that he wanted to be the offlaner now. How do you feel about this?
Oh, there is so much to talk about. Basically, Sumail thinks he's PPD, but he's not PPD. Like, that's my problem. First off, because basically he became the superstar player, and now he's taking control of the team, but he doesn't really understand how the team dynamic works because he doesn't understand. He only thinks about it in like, oh man, like obviously this is from the outside. I've never talked to them, but like just the way the team plays, it legitimately feels like he's been trying to stack skill upon skill upon skill, and that's not obviously that hasn't worked. Obviously they like completely crumbled at TI, and I don't actually know if he realizes how important PBD was to the entire like enterprise, because like all of their best games have basically followed the PPD formula from last year of like get Universe rolling, get Sumail rolling, and then you get the game rolling. Whereas in this new iteration, like basically they just hampered their mid because like Sumail I think is still a better mid than Arteezy is. That's just my opinion. Fears obviously he has played carry for before this stint, but I don't actually know if he will reach that level again. Like there's no guarantee he will. And as for Arteezy, he's still stable, he's still good, but um, like you're still gonna run into the same problems of how you're gonna control economy because it seems like if you're following the PPD formula, obviously the answer is you go into Sumail and then you go into Arteezy and then Fear is the sacrificial one.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at ESL Genting, it hasn't been that way. Actually, like the few games I watched of EG, like Sumail just moves back to the mid lane anyway. Like, okay.
Effectively, no, so yeah, let me just address that because I think that's one of the big issues for me with this team thus far. And granted, obviously they've only played a couple of games up until now, but it does seem like they're sort of dodging the question of how like they're they haven't really moved him to the offlane yet. Yeah, he has played offlaners. Yes, he's played on the offlane, but oftentimes it feels like he's still the mid or he's still like the primary core. Which again, I mean, you know, we talked about this previously. You mentioned it just now that Universe in the PPD formula also got a little farm, but still, it feels like he's not really accepted the offline position just yet. I'm not saying that he needs less farm or less attention, but a lot of times they'll just switch around the lanes in ways that is very favorable for him and Arteezy still, which is hey fine, but it's still dodging the fact that he's an offlaner now. Like you see him, like you mentioned, suddenly playing Death Prophet or Puck. This is just not something you would have ever done if your offlaner was not the previous mid laner, right?
Yeah, like
And I think
listen, it's fair. Like it's fair if you can do that. Like didn't Inflame do that basically?
well, yes and no. I think they at least at the very beginning, but ultimately he's always stuck to his offlane position. Like they've
Okay,
always made
okay,
sure that he's definitely the offlane player, and I think that for
yeah.
me is the biggest gripe with this team thus far. It might work out in the beginning, the fact that they can always play around these sort of like role clashes in a way, but at some point they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have to accept that Sumail has to be the undoubted offlaner. They can't always just switch around dynamics and be like, all right, this game you're actually going to be a mid laner. Oh, this game you're
Yeah.
going to be our carry. It doesn't work like that. And again, it might work for the first couple of weeks because obviously, you know, it's a honeymoon phase. It might just work out. Teams might still need time to
Yeah.
figure them
Honeymoon
out.
phase almost beat Penta.
Yeah, definitely. Almost beat Penta. But long term, I just don't think it's gonna work out. I feel like I've seen this too many times where teams being over flexible in a sense where they keep rotating lanes because their cores are like supposedly super flexible, but it's actually just because somebody's very uncomfortable in a certain position. That's why they have to move it around. I've seen this
Uh-huh.
way too often, and I don't think it's ever worked out in Dota. The only times it has worked out, in my opinion, is when they do it in a very constant sort of like switch between two positions. So the 1-2 switch that we've seen from both Secret in regards to Artesian S4,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
or now Liquid with Matuma Men and Miracle, where they switch the 1 and 2 position. I
Yeah,
think it
but
works. Those are
those are
very rare exceptions, of course, right?
not only are they rare exceptions, but we're talking about like a combination of two players that really do know how to play off of each other.
That's true.
Uh,
I mean,
Like, and like the team knows how to play off of them. Like,
you know,
actually, I don't know if that's the case for Secret, just because they did in a way outscale everybody, but it's definitely the case in Liquid.
yeah,
And like the problem here is like you hit the nail on the head. Like this is not a consistent way to build a team. There is a reason why PPD made it so that he always tried to set up the game around the mid laner. Like he was that's why he changed the fucking meta in a way. And the way they're doing it is they're kind of it's actually similar to the way they've built their roster since PPD left. Is they're just kind of like putting a band-aid on the problem and thinking, oh,
yeah.
it'll be fine, and then you bleed out at the TI. Like
Effectively, no, I agree with this, and
like I my even though like Optic is like really bad is like hasn't like gone out of like the qualifiers yet and done anything significant at all, I'm pretty confident in my Optic pick to do better than EG this year. Still pretty confident.
we shall see for sure. No, but I'm not sure if you saw it, but I did this show with Thorin, right, about Arteezy, if he's ever gonna win
Yeah,
the
yeah,
TI.
I
And
saw
in
it.
that show, obviously we only knew the roster, but we haven't seen it play until that point. And I was very
Hmm.
confident in that roster, and I still
I
think
was
that
at
if they committed to the Sumail offlane, and if he made like the transition that S4 did, that Fata did, that Inflamed did, that so many other mid players did before him, if he stuck to that transition, I would 100% be convinced in this team going forward, because if they focus on Arteezy as a star player, and if Sumail can pull off the same kind of performances that we've seen again from the other previous mid laners that have transitioned to the offlane, I think this team has the potential to win it. But right now, all I'm seeing is them pretty much as the same team before, trying to dodge the awkward question: Are we really like how do we fit Sumail and Arteezy in the same team? That's effectively what this team is currently still trying to figure out. And in my opinion, it still doesn't work out. Yeah, they're sacking Fear now, which I think is a one step into the right direction, because up until now they've tried to sack either Universe or Arteezy, and sacking Arteezy I don't think ever worked for them really.
hmm
Universe definitely didn't work for them at all. Arteezy
yeah.
kind of worked for them a little bit, but it's just super
Arteezy is
wasted
good enough to
potential.
pull it off, but
But it's super
obviously,
wasted. It's like,
yeah. But here's the thing: like you're getting way more negative if you sack Universe.
yeah,
You're getting way more
no,
negative
for sure.
demerits.
No, for sure. I do think I do think the recruiting roster is a better step into the better direct into
Into a better direction.
into a better
Yeah.
direction. But at the same time, I still I have to see it still from them to see that Sumail is actually sticking to the pure offlane. Just even even if you think that maybe in this game you can get away with putting an aggressive dual lane so that both Sumail and Arteezy can play carry. No, just stick to goddamn fucking offlane Sumail, honestly.
Yeah.
That's
I,
why I
I,
think also they just I don't know. I
I
don't think
agree.
they're going to do well at this event, and I hope for them that they're going to sort of realize afterwards. All right, maybe let's just do this. Like have like honestly like a set formula of how you want to run your next drafts. Just always stick to them, and you'll get better as a team. But for
Listen,
now, it's just whatever.
in this theoretical world, listen, if in this theoretical world where Sumio actually did have that mindset, I'd agree with you. I actually think that's a great way to play the game. It's basically like a very similar formula to what PPT did, except you might get even more out of Sumail potentially.
Definitely, he has a much more flexible hero pool than Universe. Like
Yeah,
the
right.
expectation is for them to be better than what they were with PPD, effectively.
But like just the way I've looked at Sumail's career and the way it has evolved into Team EG over time, into this point where he's basically the leader of the team, even if he's not the true leader of the team. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's not making all like the calls in the game. But like if he wants the team to change like rosters, if he wants them to play a certain way, they'll follow him.
Yes, when they made the decision to build the team around Sumail rather than PPD, when they basically said we'll choose you over PPD, effectively
He
that gave
he
him
effectively became the leader,
he got so
and
much more power than he probably wanted, but or
no,
that
no, he
they
wanted the,
well yeah he
yeah,
wanted it, but they probably gave him too much power.
like that's their problem is they didn't realize like PBD was a true mastermind and Sumail was just a superstar player. Um, and the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think Sumail is the type of person who's going to realize this is a mistake. I actually think if we look at the last 1.5 years of Sumail, uh, yeah, ascendant mid lane player, arguably the best player for mid lane for a decent amount of 2017. I think that's inarguable. But the problem with Sumail is like he has never like he has never like during that entire like Arteezy Sumail like universe problem, he never committed to like one player ever like sacrificing. He never committed to an idea of the way the team style runs or team style plays. And I thought initially that might have been a crit problem because like that's a very complicated problem. Obviously, for especially for like a leader who's like coming into the team and he's not necessarily like has pure control of the team. And then the way people described him is like he gets along with the team. Well, that's actually a problem because he's not telling the team how to play. But not, might just be a Sumail problem because Sumail's obviously like the leader of the team now, right? So he hasn't committed to any of this, and this is bleeding into his offlane play basically because it's not really an offlaner.
No, I agree with that. Um,
So like I get where you're going for. Is like yeah, if he committed to this, I just don't think he has the mindset to commit to it, and I don't think anybody in EG has the guts to tell him this is a wrong move.
I think, or rather
Or
for this,
maybe they all agree with him. Maybe they all think this is the right move.
yeah,
I don't know.
fair point. No, but for the sake of the team, obviously, I mean, you want to see a team like this succeed, right? Just the raw skill, you want to see them at the top. But I think for the sake of them, I hope that either Misery or Bulba is up to the task to make sure that the team is going the right direction. Because right now, as you said, or as you both said, I guess, as long as Sumail is not committing to that idea of the true offlane, I don't think this is going to happen for this team. Like, they're always going to hover around the idea of we can still put Sumail mid, right? Like, that should never ever exist in their mindset to put Sumail mid, in my opinion. But for now, it still exists, that idea. And I think that's the wrong. I think that's what's going to cost them a championship, or at the very least, the chance of a championship.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't actually know how Misery thinks of the game necessarily, so it's hard to say if he has the ability to do it. I definitely don't think Boba has though, because like Boba, the way Boba thinks about the game is very different than like he doesn't think of it as let's enable this like polarizing player. He'll think of it as these are the heroes, this is their skills, this is how you run the map. Like these are the item timings, and this is how like all that shit works together. As like works together as chess pieces almost.
right.
And
And
yeah, I think he's like arguably the greatest Dota 2 mind we ever see, but he doesn't think of it that way. And that's my I don't think the solution will even occur to him.
And it's worth noting, of course, that this isn't in general an issue that's not easy to solve at all. Like, I mean, obviously, we talk about it as if, just committing to the offlane idea, or making sure that
Yeah.
stays in offlane is an easy fix, but it's not, because I mean, I think the easiest proof is the fact that we can only name two examples of this, if like one of captains making sure star players can work together in like flexible roles. If we can only name two examples, it should go to show how difficult it is to master this. Like, teams have
Yeah, because
tried this
two examples in like 8 years or however long, like that's ridiculous.
effectively. It's absolutely insane, and it should show how difficult this is for any captain, really. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why, and I don't know. I mean, obviously, I do think people that watch this show should know, but when you ever say they should have bent the knee to PPD, I
I
think,
was
I mean,
serious.
yeah, you're serious, but at the same time, I think it's worth noting that because PPD has solved that issue, or has figured it out how to play around, star players. Obviously, we could say make the same argument, be like, yo, just have Kuro or Puppy as a captain or whatever. But obviously, that's like a completely
Why
different
would they
idea.
do it? Like
Yeah,
their team's so good.
exactly. The team's already so good, so I don't know.
Yeah, and then basically, like PPD even like obviously like this is probably a jab on PPD's part, but he was actually like I think he was serious when he said they made the wrong move in kicking Universe. It should have been either RTZ or Sumail.
No, I probably, well, probably,
Like that's
I
some
agree.
serious advice, and I think he's right.
I agree. I don't think they have figured out how to basically play with both Arteezy and Sumail yet. And if they
And
can't,
they've been trying for like a year and a half
yeah,
now.
if they
Like,
can't now, I think they need to break up that duo.
yeah,
At least if they
like,
want to win championships.
uh-huh.
Well, we did talk about Fnatic in this roster shuffle as well, obviously because Universe is part of Fnatic now, replacing Ohio.
Yeah,
So I think it's worth talking about that team as well.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
uh,
Should,
you go ahead? I have a bit of a stronger opinion on this. Not
all right,
necessarily stronger
because
opinion, but no.
like I'll like even though everybody else is like ignore the drama for a second. Like if you just look at like the roster's change in general, I think a majority of people were fine with it. Like just in terms of like a theoretical like strength of universe. I was actually one of the only people I think is like who had a differing opinion because I don't actually think universe will get enough resources. Just because you're running into the Abed, Eternal Envy, like universe trio, and yeah, Eternal Envy has actually already shown a bit like he's willing to sacrifice his own farm to enable the team. But like my such a problem is that is like he'll have to sacrifice more, and then if you do that, you're sacrificing like the eternal envy comeback factor of like the 90-minute game or whatever, right? Like that, I think that's like one of the great strengths of an eternal envy team, and like he can't do it if you don't give him enough farm. So I was of the belief that it would work out actually worse for the team.
I actually both have to agree and disagree with that point. So first of all, I think that Envy, and this is why I think the universe would work in that lineup, is because he can sacrifice himself, like you said, and he's obviously proven it as well. And I think that's actually one of his greatest strengths these days, to be able to sacrifice himself without actually sort of like becoming dead weight.
Yeah,
But I think almost, if anything, the fact that he has, yeah, maybe he has even less of farm than he would maybe with Ohio, but honestly, I mean, isn't one of the reasons why Envy is so good at the Eternal Envy comeback factor not necessarily like the kind of farm that he has towards at that point, but
it's the
rather
ability to get farm when
is
he's hella dead.
when he like, yeah, exactly, like he if honestly, this sounds like I'm making a joke, but we all at this point have accepted the fact that Eternal Envy views his life as an anime, or the fact at
Yeah,
the very least
it's reality,
he is
man. It's not a joke.
he is a protagonist of his own anime. He's putting himself in a much more dire position so that he has to pull out the Eternal Envy factor, right? I mean,
Yeah,
by
I
cutting
will agree
himself
with you
off of a
there.
farm, he just effectively makes it sure that he basically almost forces himself to become a better player, like in sort of like these clutch moments. At the same time, though, I think Universe is also a player that, given the farm, is able to actually utilize it and actually also just pull out victories for his team. Not necessarily by himself, but like he wins a large portion of a game by himself, which I don't think Ohio ever really did.
Yeah, he did it once, but I was like, we're talking like 5 years back. He can't do it anymore.
And
Let's be
no, and
fair.
he
Like,
definitely had good games where he was like a winning factor, but I don't like. I think Universe on a consistent basis can win
yeah,
you the game if you give him space and farm.
yeah,
Ohio, not necessarily, and
yeah.
that's I think the
I'll agree with that.
huge difference
Yeah, I'll agree
between.
with that because like the last time Ohio was like a true carry player, and like I, what is probably like in orange TI3. Like
Well,
that's how far back it was. Like I
it's
don't
yeah. When
like
in their TI 6 run, he was actually pretty strong as well. Like him,
he was he was he was decent, but like he wasn't like TI3 level. I think.
no, definitely
Well,
not.
that's just my opinion though.
No, definitely not. I
Um,
agree with that.
Whereas like if you look at Universe, like his highs are actually extremely high, and the fact that he didn't have to do it all the time, he only had to do it whenever like Sumail or Arteezy kind of fucked up, or maybe, but like basically it was like if the superstar player didn't show up, then it was Universe of Fear's time to like save the game. Basically,
Right.
that's basically how I kind of saw it. So in that sense, it does. In that sense, Universe does increase like the carry potential of the team because in the previous roster, the only guys who like could win you the game through individual skill were Eternal Envy and Abed.
Actually, mostly
Um,
just Abed. No offense to Eternal Envy, but I don't think he
yeah,
can like. I mean, obviously he has that Eternal Envy factor, but I
he
think
does, he does have something in him that can like pull out that bullshit,
right.
right?
But
Like
like the
he still
sort of like,
has it.
yeah, he still has it. But like the sort of like carrying factor definitely was Abed. But now you have sort of like, I almost want to call them win conditions. You basically have two win conditions or
Yeah,
two and a
yeah,
half, whereas previously you had like one and a half.
yeah. Like you have the regular two with Abed and Universe, and then you have like the factor of Eternal Envy,
Yeah.
which I don't even know if that's considered a real win condition, but it keeps happening. Like,
No, it
what can I say?
it definitely is a win condition. I definitely would treat it as a win condition.
Like, if it
Um,
keeps happening, it's true. Like,
so one thing to note in this transfer is that obviously, now to address the drama a little bit, because obviously people were like, "Oh, you're backstabbing Ohio and whatnot," and I do think it's a fucked up thing to do. But at the same time, it's worth noting that Ohio did this as well to Net previously. So Ohio isn't necessarily like a completely innocent person in all of this. Like, yeah, he was the victim now, but he was also the sort of like perpetrator before, right? So yeah, I'm not like he knows how this business effectively works. That said, it might be a little bit worse for him this time around because obviously they literally just qualified for a major, so that's a little bit more
yeah,
fucked up. But still, I do think that the situations are very comparable. But just to talk about the actual replacement, while I do think that Universe is a good replacement, I do think that Ohio is actually a better player, if that makes any sense, because I think his hero
okay.
pool is a little bit wider and he's more flexible, and it allows their
He is
draft.
more
He
flexible.
it
Like,
allows yeah he allows their draft to be much more flexible, but I do see why they replaced him. Obviously for the reasons that we pointed out, and
and
also
like,
as far as
there
I
is
know,
the Eternal Envy. Did you see the Eternal Envy interview with Hotbit?
I read part, or I didn't see it. I clicked on the video, but I didn't have time to see it, so I only read
All right,
TLDR
so
and Reddit. No, let me just finish this because
okay,
I know that he supposedly said that the Ohio might not have put in as much work as some of the
uh-huh.
others, and I know that to be very true. I remember at Middle and Major. That's why I want to talk about this. Middle and Major, they're like in the lower bracket or something, and they're like really they have to play an elimination match the next day, right? What the fuck's
Yeah,
Ohio doing? He's playing drinking games until like 1 a.m. or something. Like, I'm literally sitting there, I'm like asking myself, isn't he playing tomorrow? And oh yeah, they're playing tomorrow. Or at the very least, like, no, I'm 100% sure they were playing the next day. And that's one of the things
yeah,
that if he does that at a LAN event of a major, I can definitely see him slacking off for like just online events as well. Again,
yeah.
I don't know the guy in person, and I've not been part of the team at all. I've not talked about them, but when Envy said, or when I read that he said that Ohio hasn't put in as much work as other teams, or as other players, or as other portions of the team, and that's why he's even been considered to be removed, even going into that, like before that, right? Apparently, they
Yeah.
considered removing him in the fall already. That's what I totally understood. Like, if
Yeah,
I could
that's
definitely see
fair.
him not
Like,
putting in the work.
listen, it really depends on the player. Like, there are players where like they can get away with it because they're that good. But if we're just talking about Ohio, I don't think he was that good. I don't think he was such a good player that he could get away with that.
For
Obviously, he couldn't
even
because like there was a comparable player who was willing to work more.
even if you can get away with, like, even if you're good enough to get away with it, I think it just creates a very bad atmosphere in the team.
Yeah,
Like for example, Envy said that Puppy supposedly doesn't practice as much, or didn't practice as much as at the time with his team, right? And I think
uh-huh.
Puppy is definitely the kind of player where he can say he's good enough to get away with it because he's both good as a captain, but also individually. Like for years, he's
Yeah,
been super consistent. I think he's one of the most consistent like support players in Dota,
yeah,
effectively. But it still creates a really bad atmosphere for the team if one of your players is just like dicking around, not pulling up Dota for like 2 weeks, effectively. So I
mhm.
get your point. Like some people can definitely like quote unquote get away with it, but I agree with you that Universe, in terms of like his official performances, definitely never has been the player that could get away with it.
Yeah, and
Maybe a couple of years ago, like you mentioned, when he was really clutch, but at the
yeah,
moment, I just don't think. And maybe this
uh,
is a bit of a wake up call as well for him.
yeah. I do know like the initial rift between PBD and Sumail is because of Sumail's like work ethic, right? And
Yeah.
so like that's an example of it work getting away because I actually don't know if it's Sumail not working hard enough or if it was like PBD having higher standards than normal people. Like I can't really say, but
Either way, it just creates a rift in the team
it
if the
creates a
expectations are different.
yeah. And there's an interesting point you brought up where basically like um basically like you wouldn't be able to do this shit in like Liquid. I doubt you could be able to do it in like an Eternal Envy team especially. But basically like the leaders have set like a kind of cultural tone to the team.
Right.
Like this is how much you want to work, and obviously if you have like an element that doesn't work that hard, then that brings down the whole team. And this winning in a way, winning does heal all wounds. So like if like if they had won a shitload, this Fnatic team, then I doubt they'd kick him. But because they didn't win a shitload, and because there was a comparable teammate in the works, and because of like team atmosphere. Maybe it wasn't enough just to kick him. So there you go.
You mentioned Kuro. I've heard
Yeah.
this. I don't know if it's like an quote unquote urban legend that people are just passing around, like a wild rumor, but supposedly after TI, he just addressed his team as like, not necessarily right after TI, but like, let's say the week after TI, he's like, yo, if you're not still 100% giving it your all, get the fuck out of my team. And obviously everybody stayed, right? But I mean, they're honestly the best example I can think of a team that's always giving their best. Like, got them fucking GH, never, or almost, like, basic. I don't think he played a single game of Earth Spirit at TI because he's so bad at the hero. Goes home, practices, and is now one of the best Earth Spirits in the world. Like, that's just the kind of people that you need in your team, I believe, to succeed. And that's why
he's rare though. Like, he's so rare.
Yeah, definitely. No,
Let's
definitely.
be honest. Like, that's rare.
Definitely, that's very rare. But the general idea is that I agree with Envy, or at the very least I can understand Envy's decision, or in general Fnatic's decision to remove or replace Ohio if they didn't agree on the sort of like amount of work that was necessary for the team to work.
Yeah, and then obviously like Fnatic's a good example of, guess what, the reverse isn't enough either. Like, even if you work a shit ton, but if you're bad, you're still gonna get removed. Like, that's what happened to Excalibur.
Yes, no, that's a really good point. He's the perfect example of, like you said, proving that hard work isn't everything, and that's why GH is so rare, right? You have a hardworking, talented, super skilled guy that just, honestly, if you told him today that he needs to practice fucking Dark Rolo support, he would probably do it like day in day out and be like the best.
Yeah, so like I said, it's rare, and it's also why, like, it's actually interesting if you just think about the way the Liquid have formed their team. It's basically because they all believe in Kuroki, and Kuroki doesn't believe in throwing tournaments, so they always try hard.
They always try hard. It's so rare to see it, and honestly, it's so refreshing as well. Because
even in like tournaments where like they're basically just giving away information for TI, like they still try hard. Like, they did it 2 years in a row.
Exactly.
They'll do it 3 years in a row. They don't give a fuck. And like, that's just try hard every day.
It's so cool to see. When's the last time you could have looked at a team and be like, well, every event they're giving it their all? Like, for example, VP at the Summit, they're dicking around picking 45 heroes in like 3 different games or something.
Hey man, that was a message.
I
was a message.
I know it was a message, but at the same time, they're not necessarily taking it like 100% serious, right? Obviously, they can't afford to because they're so skilled they don't have to. But it's so refreshing to see a team like, and obviously, at the same time, I still enjoy watching VP play, and I enjoyed that tournament. It was hilarious to watch. It's super fun to see a team like that, but it's also refreshing to see a team that is just so skilled, but still 100% in every goddamn tournament.
Like, I don't know. The last one I can think of is maybe the old Cloud9 one, or maybe the old DK one, but even then, I don't actually remember if they practice all the time or not. I just remember they practice that shitload. But even then, like, none of them have like done it as long as this core.
No, that's true.
Of like players.
Definitely true. Well, we've already detoured a little bit from the roster shuffle news. Well, just a little bit. But let's close it out with the last Dota topic for the day, the Genting minor. So ESL One Genting, obviously we've talked about it a little bit because of the Facebook deal, but Facebook deal aside, drama aside, the event has been quite entertaining thus far. Let's talk about the format first, because I think that's worth talking about, because it's a little bit of a different format. I think you could technically summarize it as a GSL style group stage, or I say GSL style, but it's effectively just a double elimination group stage. That just seeds into a 4-man playoff.
6-man.
Oh, six man. Sorry, 6-man playoff. So the best 3 teams of every team move on. The best team immediately seeded into semifinals, and the second and third are going to move into the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
The best thing about all of this, in my opinion, only the first round is best of 1. Everything else best of 3. So how do you feel about this format?
First, I'd like to point out that even somehow, for some reason, they only did this in Dota 2 and not CSGO. Like, because like they do something similar in CSGO, but instead of like this double elim, it's round robin best of 1, and like there's in like CS:GO there's this like hilarious stat where basically like 98% of teams that qualified into the semifinals in this like format were immediately eliminated when they played in the best of 3. It's because it created so much variance that like anybody could get that first spot, and anybody did get that first spot, and then they immediately lost. That's right. And whereas like this version of the format is so much better. because
Yes,
it gets rid of that.
100%. No, I again, as a spectator that what follows both Dota and CS:GO, it is hilarious to me how CS:GO has such an aversion, or to yeah, aversion to best of threes.
Yeah,
And
probably because they feel like they could get away with it in CS:GO. Like, oh, thank God, we can say the schedule. But
I
come
mean,
on, guys.
they can in Dota they can't because the teams have such power, and Valve has a lot of power as well. And like in
Yeah,
Dota right now, I mean, there's honestly this is also the first time we've had such a extensive format outside of TI or majors, which is
yeah,
very refreshing because
hmm
ESL is willing to run a secondary stream, which we haven't had for a while now in Dota at least.
yeah.
And
And they don't do that in CS:GO either. I don't know why.
yeah, I think it's a great idea. Well, they do it a couple of times. I
Every
think
once in a while they do it,
for
but
the
like,
big IEMs where they have like 16 teams and it's like a huge best of one run
yeah,
robin group stage, they'll have like a B stream every now and then.
yeah. But like, I wish they'd do it more. Like,
No, I agree with you. Honestly, I found myself watching both, and I mean I enjoyed it obviously.
uh-huh.
Best of one sucks. I honestly even watching the best of ones, I kind of wish they would have had best of threes in the first round as well.
I
Just
mean, it just happens like all these best of ones were like ended pretty fast. A
yeah,
lot of them did.
yeah. Well, all right. Let's talk about the teams. So we have 16 teams at this minor, which is again almost
Hmm.
unprecedented in Dota 2. To
Yeah.
have 16 teams not be like a major esque event.
Hmm.
Um, the cool thing about this, it pretty much also has most of the best teams in the world at the moment. I think if you go by Knoxville's Glico ratings or whatever, you're missing out on OG, LGD, and one more other team that's technically in the top 10 or something. Actually, I think he's just going by DPC
Points.
points. But
Hmm.
he made like a tweet that two teams or three teams are missing. I think OG, LGD, and
Like, I don't believe in LGD yet, so
see that's the
like,
thing. That's the thing. I also don't believe in LGD yet, so I think it's fair that they're not in here. OG is also a little bit questionable, and obviously they only started recently to sort of like become good. So
yeah, like
it's up
I don't miss LG. Put it that way.
same. So for now, I do think this is probably the most competitive tournament you could have put together at this stage at this time.
Uh huh.
Um, Obviously, yeah, you can always maybe replace Planet Dark with Kinguin if you want, or with OG if you wanted to up the ante a little bit. But I
Yeah.
think this is pretty much the most competitive field right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, let's quickly actually walk through who's been eliminated already. So eliminated has been somewhat expectedly SG Esports.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think right now. I think there was a stat at some point that every pro circuit event, the South American team has been eliminated first. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's still
That's probably
true.
true.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still true, but
It's probably
um,
true though. They haven't
Pla-
run into EG enough.
Planet Donk has been eliminated as well. Complexity has been eliminated. Fnatic has been eliminated.
Hmm.
Penta has been eliminated. LFY has been eliminated. And
Yeah.
tomorrow we'll see either TNC, EG, or well, we'll see a couple of teams eliminated, so that's not worth talking about. But all right, about the teams that have been eliminated, I think the team that is worth mentioning, or the teams that are worth mentioning here, are Fnatic and LFY. The other teams
Okay.
are somewhat expected to be eliminated. It's worth talking about complexity maybe a little bit, and we'll definitely talk about complexity. But let's talk about LFY first, because they also technically have been part of the roster shuffle already. They've
Yeah.
replaced Super with OP, or rather,
Uh huh.
they technically haven't swapped yet. It's a trial period for both teams. So they
Yeah.
basically swapped with VGJ Thunder, who are also
They're probably gonna
participating
go
here.
back after this event.
Well, LFY might want to, but VGJ Thunder is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about LFY? Both with the roster shuffle in mind, but also just having watched or having potentially watched this one. I'm not sure if you watched them at this point.
I watched some of it and I was like kind of disappointed in LFY and everything. Like, basically when I at TI 7, I basically said something along the lines of I thought LFI was a better team than Newbie. I still think that was the case for that tournament, and I think the reason was because like even though like the skill wasn't necessarily there, like I only think their ascendant. I only think they had one ascendant player in Afu, but the thing was like their team as a team, in terms of like drafts, in terms of rotations, in terms of how they played the map, was arguably the best in the Chinese region. But they lost all of that, and then now they have OP, who's like he's okay. Like, listen, like that old IG team is actually it's actually kind of funny how that old IG team worked out because like I thought a bunch of them would raise up, but the only one that really has, I think, in my opinion, is XXS, and then OP is like he's just okay, but it's like he doesn't he's not really stable in the way Super was, and like one time I saw him, he got trashed in the mid lane, and like so it's like the entire thing seems like a bust, to be honest. The trade, even though on paper it sounds like it'd be a good idea, but it turned out to be a bust so far.
Quick interjection. For some reason, I just realized I said that they swapped with VGJ Thunder. That's obviously
No, like, obviously it switched to somebody else.
obviously
But
with IG. I don't know why I'm so stupid. No, I agree with you. OP. That's the funny thing is, and pretty much everybody was like, "Yo, you switch out Super. The first thing you draft is Dragon Knight. What the fuck? Why didn't you just
what was
keep?
the point of all this
Why
shit,
yeah?
right?
Why didn't you just keep Super if you're just gonna continue drafting Dragon Knight?
Hmm.
And I think the second draft was also like Death Prophet, which obviously is another one of Super's signature heroes, and I think it just goes to show that I think they'll need more time if they want to continue trying this out. But the thing is, because of the Chinese New Year coming up, I'm not sure if they have enough time, and I think they will make a
Yeah,
very
probably not.
irrational decision when it comes to deciding this roster's future.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the idea, like their playstyle, has been so ingrained about playing around Super and his strength that they just haven't been able to adapt to OP just yet. Like I think OP is a very different player than Super,
Hmm.
so they would have to play very differently.
Yeah,
But
that's a
obviously,
fair point.
it's very short term, right? And I think they need more time. But ultimately, I don't think they have enough time actually to like. I think this trial is like 2 months late, or like a month late
Yeah.
at the very least.
Hmm.
Um, so there's that. But again, there's gonna be a couple online events I think that they can play, so maybe they'll see it there. But one thing to note about LFY, and Gareth actually called me out for that at TI. I made a bold prediction. I was like, neither LFY nor LGD are gonna make top four. Obviously, both
Uh-huh.
of them make top four, so I was wrong on that.
Yeah.
But I think, or the reason why I made that statement was because I think they were very overrated at the event,
Hmm.
and I think they were playing vastly above their own sort of like
Their own level.
their own level, and I kind of feel vindicated for that because look at LGD post TI, they just
LGD
fucking
was
they
trash.
were trash and they basically disbanded or they restructured the entire team, and LFY has got them nowhere at the moment. Like they're super trashed right now as well.
Well, to be fair, like getting out of China as like the third seed is fucking like as a second seed is fucking hard.
No, true,
Like,
true.
like like that. That's why I still have like hope in in the LFI roster, just because the Chinese region doesn't have the best teams. I think the three best teams are VP, Liquid, Secret,
Yeah,
but like they have all the best teams with right after that. It's like from 4 to like
yeah.
10, like
Well,
and it's
not
super
necessarily.
fucking hard to
I
get.
wouldn't. I wouldn't necessarily
Not the
for
10, but it's
to
like
10, but definitely like newbie VGJ and VG and definitely VGJ Thunder now are probably like right after like that top
yeah,
three that
like
you mentioned, right?
they have a bunch. They have a bunch of these teams in this
Yeah.
mid tier, and only like two of them can get out. So it's like very hard to prove that you're legitimately uh, bad or good because it's really hard to get out of there. So that's why I still had hope, even though like I don't think they ever qualified except for like this one, basically.
I think they qualify for another event.
Yeah,
I think they already
but yeah,
earned points as well. I think they placed like I don't know.
but I do think,
Yeah.
but I do get the point where like you thought they might be overrated just because like if you look at the team, the only skilled player is Afu.
Well, aside from
I
that, it's
inflame
just
a bit, but like
aside from that, I think they're very one-dimensional when it comes to
yeah.
how to approach the game.
Hmm.
Like I'm not saying it's easy to figure them out because God knows. I mean, they did play and they did win against a lot of teams, right? But at the same time, I think that's just one approach that like they
That could be phased out eventually.
yes, and right. I think that's what we're seeing right now. They're not winning with this approach at the moment. Like you could look at the drafts right now. You could look at the way they're playing right now. It's literally what they did half a year ago at TI, and
Yeah.
that's just not
Okay.
how you win as a team. I don't
Hmm.
think, and that's
Yeah.
why I think
Can't stick to a style like that for that long.
yeah, and that's why I think LFY will at least hopefully make a roster change. And I don't think OP is the roster change just yet. I talked. I
Hmm.
mean, I had this quick exchange with Vikram on Twitter as well. You know, he's like a former Dota 2 coach, um, and he basically said, you know, if you want to win, I mean, basically what I said is that replacing Super with OP isn't necessarily the right step. But what he said is also a good point. If you want to win, like if you want to win as a team that of LFY's level, right? You don't want to just place another top three at TI. You want to win TI. You
Hmm.
can't win TI with Super either. So you might as well just change him and just try with any other mid player at this point. unfortunately, I don't think OP is the answer here either, and I think there's much more problems with this team than just changing up the mid player.
Should have went with 420. Heard he's making a comeback.
Oh boy. Well, no, but just to quickly get back to Genting, the way they got them eliminated was just very
Sad.
very very sad. I don't know. This LFY definitely feels like they just don't know how to approach the game right now, like in comparison to before, and they got completely outclassed by Mineski. Obviously, it's a bad draw because Mineski is definitely a really really strong team, and like it feels weird because Mineski I think can be like anything at this stage. Like they can lose to SG Esports in my opinion, but they can also win against potentially Liquid. Not necessarily well. At the very least,
pretty close.
Yeah,
they're pretty close.
Yeah,
like,
they can give them a good run for their money, right? And that's the kind of team that Mineski is right now. So it's really difficult to beat them. But still, it feels like LFY was never close to beating anybody at this event at all. And
I mean, they only played 3 games, but the fact that they could only play 3 games is telling in and of itself.
All right, let's talk about a different team here, Fnatic. We talked about them already a little bit, obviously with the roster shuffle, but I think it's worth highlighting that they honestly did pretty well at this event. I think they looked really good against, or not really good, but they looked good enough against VG Gaming. And then they also
they were okay against Secret. Like they were top. I'll talk about that because that's like the one I was able to watch. Or basically like they were doing decently, but the fact that like Secret could basically just punish one mistake or a few key mistakes and then like take over the entire game is a bit worrying about their strategy or maybe their draft. I'm not sure which it was, but that's definitely like something you need to look at.
I think it was game 2. Was it when that was the Tinker game, wasn't it? I think that was the Tinker game 2.
No, for game 1 was the Tinker game.
Was it game 1? Either way,
yeah.
I vividly remember that one because Fnatic was very much even with Secret, maybe even ahead at some point. But like you said, Secret is just able to punish like small mistakes and just get like a lead out of nowhere effectively. And I think if anything, that's more telling of sort of like where Fnatic is as a team right now. The fact that they're even able to keep their head against Secret for that long is just proves that they're like a good team. But the fact that Secret is still able to punish them shows that Fnatic is still very far away from the top 4 at the moment, or like top 3 at the very least. So for now, I think they're like a top 8 contender.
Yeah, but like the roster changes just happened, so there's definitely room to improve there.
And good for them. They're also going to be part of the major, so they're going to have their redemption in Katowice. But
I didn't get to see Fnatic versus Vici though. Tell me about that.
So Fnatic versus Vici was a little bit of a rough one, mostly because let me just quickly pull this up because the first one was
Raffle stomp at 23 minutes. It looks like.
Yes. I was looking for the right word. They got crushed by Vici Gaming. It looked like this was going to be a quick 2-0, honestly. But then game 2 happened, and honestly, that was just the craziest game I've ever watched. That was just, I mean, like you said earlier, it was basically eternal enemy. It went back and forth the entire game. You could really tell, like, one team was throwing, then the other team was throwing. Eventually, they got mega creeps, but then Vici Gaming just proved that they're, like, ballers as well. Like, I mean, Vici Gaming right now, I think, is the closest we'll have to So, I think
VG Gaming is the best Chinese team.
Yes, no, 100%. But I mentioned earlier that there's this trifecta of like VP, Liquid, and Secret, right? They can always take game off of one another, which I think is the most impressive part about these 3 teams at the moment, and they can always beat everybody else. But I don't think there's any team at the moment that can beat all 3 of them, and the team that comes closest to it is I think VG Gaming.
Vici?
Like I don't think to be a top team, I don't think at the moment it's going to be enough to beat only one of them or only 2 of them. You have to beat all 3 of them. If you want to win a major, like most likely at every major from here on out, or at the very least, or the next couple of them, all 3 are going to be there.
You have to be 2 out of 3. You have to be 2 out of 3
at the very
just
least.
to make a run.
At the very least.
And then at that point, you're hoping like one of those 3 will knock one of another out. Yes. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it.
But basically, to ensure yourself a position at the top, you definitely want to be able to beat all 3 teams. And I think the team that comes closest to it is Vici. Newbie is pathetically outmatched against all 3. Actually, I know I know we're talking about VG Gaming right now, but I looked at the stats and it was just sad how Newbie just doesn't match up against these 3 in direct matchups. They just always lose, and they never look good doing it.
Yeah, they always look bad. I think I said this. I know I said this actually.
No,
Got to get Xiao 8 in there. Got to get some kind of change in there because nothing is working for them, they're literally stuck. They have like all the right pieces, but they're stuck, and they need to change something. I don't care what it is, but somebody needs to go.
I agree. But we'll talk about that later. So let's again look at Avicii. Again versus Fnatic, they looked a little bit shaky. I guess I think you can call game 2 shaky on their part. Even game 3 as well. Fnatic definitely looked strong enough to also take game 3 actually from Vici Gaming. But
Okay.
in the end, I do think Vici Gaming looked like the better team. Definitely, if you look at all 3 games, they definitely looked like the better team. Because in game 2, because I mean, obviously they lost game 2, but I think the way they were able to hold on in game 2 for so long, I think should go to show that they were like a really really strong team. Like you don't hold on for that long if you're just like a not
Mediocre
a good team.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, Vici Gaming, even in this event, is a team that could potentially contest the top 3. But unfortunately, I think I think they have the worst bracket run for them because they're gonna face VGG Thunder. This is not even like a sister team kind of like thing. It's more of a VGJ Thunder is just I think really good against other Chinese teams because they match up very well against other Chinese teams because of their approach. Like they have a very almost LFY-esque approach that they had at TI, like very structured, but a little bit different. They don't necessarily rely on like pushing as much as LFY does, but they're very organized, they're very disciplined, they're very patient as well. They have a very high ceiling for actually just completely throwing the game. VGJ Thunder, like for them, for me, that's like a team that can lose in 20 minutes or win in 80. But I think it's a very bad matchup for VG Gaming. So we'll see about that. But in general, I think VG Gaming is a top 4 team. At this event, I definitely see them better as the newbie.
Yeah, me too.
All right, last team from the eliminated ones that I want to talk about is Complexity.
Okay.
Because Complexity, it's a bit weird. We talked about LFY, how LFY hasn't changed their playstyle for like half a year at this stage. Complexity, on the other hand, has continuously changed their playstyle and their draft as well. Like, even if like something is working, for example, at the beginning they established like Nature's Prophet Jakiro. Like they were the ones to establish these 2 heroes, and others in NA especially started copying them, and even on LAN people started copying them. But they just continuously changed their playstyle, changed their drafts, made sure to never sort of like stick to like one hero. Maybe like 1 or 2 heroes sort of like stuck around Tusk, worth noting, but that's more of a general meta thing.
Okay.
But for me, Complexity just I don't know. They look very easily tiltable, but they look very. Every event they show a different face. Do you know what I mean? They're never like, all right, this is a step up from the last event that they attended. No, if anything, it feels like it's just a different. Like it almost feels like they're just waking up with the wrong foot out of the bed. And I feel like a team that has that can show that face, like, oh, this event was just really bad, but next event we're going to be much better, right? Almost like Virtus Pro in a lot of ways in CS:GO. Obviously, Virtus Pro right now is really bad, but like before, you would never know which Virtus Pro would show up, right? Effectively, you'd never know what Complexity is going to show up. But unfortunately,
but the difference between them is like Virtus Pro, like when we say we don't know what to show up, like when they did show up, they could win the tournament.
Right?
Like,
No.
I've never seen this Complexity get close to that.
No, definitely no. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think the best I think a team like Complexity needs to be able to continuously improve from event to event, and at least based on the performances and the results, I just don't see it at the moment. That's the sad truth.
Yeah, like I'm not actually sure if it's kind of weird if you when you point out the fact that they're basically changing the strategy, they're changing the drafts from event to event. Like, does that mean like they basically break down after they lose an event? Like,
no,
go
it's
back to
more
the drawing
like
board, or is
like they basically keep evolving. Like they never try to stick to like one idea of like or like to just one like approach to playing the game. They effectively just try to sort of like improve their gameplay every time.
All right,
and
but
it
like
forces them to change their draft every time as well.
Okay, but do they do it before like the meta is stale? Like that's my question. Like
effectively, you could almost argue they're trying to stay ahead of the meta because like when I mentioned the Prophet Jakiro, that's when effectively everybody started picking it up. Like they were the ones to do it first, and then everybody started picking it up. So to not be part of the stale meta, they effectively started going forward and just picking other stuff, knowing that what if they stuck to the old ways, they would basically be beaten very easily.
Because then that tells me like they have good minds on the team. Obviously, like I mean everybody knows Swindles is pretty good at Dota 2, just thinking about it. But
Zfrix also not necessarily
Because
pro player.
they've been together for a long time. I assume like they have similar ideas
No,
of Dota 2.
well, yeah, but at the same time, he's also very brilliant in his own right. I think he's the kind of like he's he's the kind of guy that just experiments with a lot of things. I'm not sure if you remember that, but once they had a strategy where they would basically put axe, like they would stack ancients for axe, and then they
Uh-huh.
would put axe and they would draw the aggro, and then they would use the Winter Wyvern's Cold Embrace to basically save him from all the physical damage from the ancients. But he would keep spinning, and they would suddenly just have a blink like 9 minutes into the game from like an axe that didn't have a good start because that was just such a cheesy strat. And
That's
it's
pretty
like
dirty.
it's these kind of things that Zfrick is really good at, like these sort of like ideas and tinkering the game, innovating like how to do like mini like interactions with between heroes. That's what he's really good at.
Yeah, but like here's my problem with complexity is, just as a organization as a team, they don't really like changing players. And I'm not even sure if changing. I'm not even sure if changing players is actually the answer, but it can be. In put it this way, like if you're not, that's like a very easy way to change something. And and the way you're telling me now is like they're changing the drafts, changing the meta, but that's not working. And it's not like you can force players to like start performing at LAN events. This team has been together for like 4 or 5 months now, right? Like
Yeah,
since September last year,
effectively.
and it's great that they're getting out of the NA qualifiers like consistently, but they're not getting much further than that. And so something needs to change. And if we can't change the performance of the team, maybe you add in another element in terms of a player, but just as a team throughout their history, they've never really done that.
No,
So I feel like they're kind of just stuck here, and I think they'll be stuck here for a long time.
that's
I don't. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to find an upswing in the next few months. I'll put it that way.
I mean that's what I'm afraid of as well for this team. I know, obviously, being a little bit biased here, obviously being friends with some of them.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe the development just isn't there. Like they've effectively always already played for a couple of months or almost like half a year. Like this, you could almost look at the season as like halfway over because the roster
Yeah.
lock is coming up soon, and that's going to be the key point, right? You want to definitely lock down a team with the roster. Like a full roster, because you cannot afford to concede points, especially as a team that's already sort of like scraping by, quote unquote, scraping by as is with qualifying points.
Yeah.
So for a team like Complexity, I think this is definitely going to be make or break. Like, do they think this roster still has what it takes to like continue improving, or do they think, or do they need to make a change? And I think obviously you can make the case for a lot of teams here, but that's why this tournament especially is also really important actually, because this is one of the big ones right before the roster lock, and I wouldn't be surprised if not necessarily half of them, but a good amount of these teams would make or are going to make a roster change. I think.
Like, I think you have to do it soon too. It's like
Yeah.
there aren't going to be that many players out there that you can take. Like, I'm looking through these NA qualifiers. I don't actually see any player that's like standing out. Like, oh, get this guy. Like, none of these guys are like that.
I mean, there's a reason why they have two Swedish players in the team, right?
Yeah.
Because their NA player pool isn't actually big or very big.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard rumors about VGJ Storm, the other NA team, also trying out a couple of European players, or having tried out a couple of European players before they got Banana Slam Gemma.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult at the moment, and I mean Optic, EG, both of them have European players in their ranks, because
Yeah.
it's difficult to find a full 5-man team of NA players because there's just not big of enough of a player pool, and
Yeah.
it's rough.
That's kind of funny because like a bunch of like the new wave of players initially came from NA.
Yeah.
But I guess it's slowed down
I mean,
since.
no, the progress definitely has slowed down, and I mean, it's difficult to call out what really the reason is. I mean, there's a point to be made, obviously, that both Arteezy and Sumail, and in general, a lot of the new players that we've seen in the scene, aren't technically new players because they've definitely played Dota like for like 8-10 years already, right? Like these aren't players that we migrated from like Dota 2 days. Like the big
Mhm.
new Dota 2 players are actually from Europe and China. Like the true people that never played Dota 1, for example, those kind of players, right?
Yeah.
Those aren't from NA. All the NA players definitely have played Warcraft 3 Dota at some point, or most of them anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a struggle going forward, finding new players or developing talent. All right, but
And
just to
I
stay
guess
in,
that's
yeah,
why you go to Jordan and whatnot.
basically, yeah, maybe South America is the next step.
Hmm.
Let's talk about the rest of ESL One Genting then. Mostly just let's just do some predictions because
Okay.
just to wrap this up quite quickly. Top four, because those are the ones that get qualifying points. Who do you think is going to top four, and tell me who's going to win. Only you don't have to order the top four. Obviously, it's difficult to order that, but at least tell me who's going to win out of those four.
All right, let me look. I think Liquid wins. I think Virtus.pro gets second, Secret gets third, and Mineski gets fourth.
All right.
And the reason I'm going with this is because I think Thunder eliminate VG tomorrow, even though I think VG is a better team. Definitely think Mineski is going to take out everybody else in the lower bracket to qualify and then get through to the fourth place.
Mm-hmm.
And based off of like the way the brackets work, I think VP beat Secret. Then they play. Then actually, wait. Maybe Secret wins though, because I think Secret has a better matchup against Liquid than the other way around. But yeah, basically those are my three, and then Mineski will be my fourth dark horse pick, even though I think Vici is probably better.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the matchup, because I actually didn't really put much thought into that when I made my top four and my winner. But obviously,
yeah, like basically whoever wins, like if VP wins against Secret, then Secret should win the tournament, I think, because they'll end up playing Liquid twice, is my guess.
yeah.
But if it goes the other way around, then I think Liquid might win.
No, I agree with you. I also think that Secret at the moment have a much better matchup against Liquid than VP would. So that's interesting how that would play out. Anyway, I mean, I pretty much have the same top three, obviously, because.
Yeah, I think I think it's really hard to argue any of those three outside of the top three. But who do you have as your fourth?
I still have VG Gaming.
VG Gaming. Still think they'll break through Thunder?
I still think they can make it. I do think it's
like if they make it to the playoffs, I'd have them as fourth, but I'm not sure if they do.
I do think it's a bad matchup for them, but I can definitely see them making it. But if it's not VG Gaming, I probably would have to go with Mineski as well. I think they're definitely one of the better teams in the other group. Maybe Newbie, but at the same time, Newbie's like, I mean, Newbie can always be top four at any given event almost, but it doesn't really mean much because they're never going to be top. It just feels like they're never going to be top three at like an event that quote unquote matters. Like, you know,
they'll never be top three in an event where there's Liquid, Virtus.pro, and Secret.
Well, yeah.
Like that's the problem, isn't it? Like I could see a world where like maybe Mineski upsets one of them. I could see a world where maybe EG gets it together and upsets one of them. Definitely see a world where Vici can do it. Cannot see a world where Newbie does it.
Not at the moment, no. Who knows? Maybe we're gonna be proven wrong tomorrow if they beat Liquid in the group stage.
I doubt that'll happen, but okay. I think we'll more likely see another brooding shot of SCCC than Newbie winning. Like this goddamn team. I need YAEP.
That shall be it for Dota. We shall move on to CSGO and just talk about the ELEAGUE Major because that is the big one happening this week. It has been quite enjoyable thus far, but it's down to the legends only. So we've seen the what was it called, the new challenger stage or whatever it's called. What was the one before that? The
major qualifier. It used to be called major qualifier. Now it's called challenger stage.
Yeah, and then it's like the legend stage, and now it's the actual main event or something, or the champion stage.
Stupid. Like legend stage used to be called group stage, but whatever.
Stupid naming scheme. Biggest takeaway here, obviously, let's just look at the top 8 for now. But we'll get back to the other ones later. But we have FaZe, Mousesports, Navi, QB Fire, G2, Cloud9, and then SK Fnatic in the top 8, and also as the legends. Kind of crazy to have QB Fire as the legends, to be honest. But in general, I think this is the big talking point, the legend status. I think just in general at this event, there's two things that are worth taking away here. First one is the fact that the major happened right after the player break. Stupid as hell. Second one is the major status maybe not necessarily redundant, but is it maybe an outdated concept? Or should it be revamped to a degree? Because obviously, all right, how many legends from the last? How many legends actually survived? We have SK. We have.
That's it, I think. Maybe Fnatic, if you want to count them.
Well, I guess.
Fnatic. Yeah, because like different team, right? But if we're just talking about like the spot, it's only SK and Fnatic, I think.
Fnatic, yes. That
Everybody
is
else is
absolutely
new.
stupid, and it should show how. And that's why I've never necessarily been that big of a fan of this whole legend status,
Yeah.
especially in previous majors where reaching legend took like two best of ones effectively.
Uh-huh.
Um, Similarly here, I mean, you win three best of ones and you're through to the legend status,
Yeah.
like your legend, and it feels
Uh-huh.
very stupid because where the titles actually being played out is a best of three stage.
Yeah. Like this has always been a problem with CS:GO majors is their format is kind of shit. Always has been.
Yeah,
Feels like it always will be.
unfortunately, yeah.
Don't know why. And then like I don't even know why. Like I know it's whoever does this is different from the guy who does Dota 2, but like maybe he like literally he's very spiteful. Like I'll show those Dota 2 guys how to really do it, and then he just fucks up every time. It's like he's literally doing something different. Like and it makes no sense. Like in Dota 2, the way the majors worked out, the old ones with the invites and stuff, is like it was based off of performance. The throughout like the tournament circuit. CS:GO majors work out in such a way that they ignore all tournaments in between.
Yeah, which is stupid because a lot of times we've seen majors happen where a lot of like the really hot or strong teams would actually never be part of the actual major because they only quote unquote only formed after the last major happened, or maybe even between, so or maybe even they needed the major qualifier to sort of like grow as a team as well, right? Um, it just feels very stupid to have these sort of like legends status or have the legend status because it also causes like rifts in the roster sort of like creation, as we've seen
Yeah,
from Immortals, we've seen from
and
Fnatic,
Fnatic.
right? It's stupid to give these players sort of almost that power in a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Just and they don't really have. I mean, once you reach legend status, you can just fuck around for half a year.
yeah, pretty much. And like another problem is like right now we're using the Swiss system, but like the Swiss system is kind of fucked up because in the regular Swiss system you do seeding, actual seeding, like good seeding, and we don't have any good seeding. We actually have negative good seeding. Um, and like I don't know why so many people are like, man, I don't know how you would seed it. Like, come on, guys, literally. HLTV is right there. If you don't want HLTV, just hire a guy to do it. And yeah, you know what? Knoxville has a point. Like, you don't want somebody else to do it, but objectively speaking, that's better than the current seating now,
Yes.
and that's a good short-term solution. I'm fine with it.
One
Like,
fucking
it makes for a better tournament. It makes for a more fair tournament that way. In short term, he has a point about having an objective, not yeah, an objective like system you tinker around with to get the best results eventually. But we don't have time for that apparently. Like
when
something has to change.
when Cloud9 had to face G2 after both of them went 3-0 in their goddamn qualifier, you know something's messed up,
Yeah,
right? I
because
know it was technically caused by what 100 Thieves not being able to be part of the major, but at the end of the day, there should be enough flexibility with this kind of stuff. Or I mean, the seating would never allow this in the first place, obviously, right?
yeah,
Um, I don't know. There's so many things to be complaining about, honestly, in this event, in terms of format, scheduling, and just overall sort of like decision making when it comes to like organizing the event. That makes me just very furious because it's a
yeah.
good event. Like ELEAGUE put on a great show. They have great
Mhm.
analysts. They have great casters. The teams are. I mean, the games are still fun to watch, obviously, but at the end of the day, we see some bad Counter Strike from teams that should be legends, and then we see some teams take each other hat on that should technically not be playing against one another in the first round.
Yeah. Like basically, I don't even know why they call it legends though. It's like that's such a bad word to use. Like they're just devaluing that word. Um,
Well, at the moment, it definitely sounds really bad. Like
yeah, but
I don't think that legends sound very special at this stage.
yeah,
I mean,
like basically, go ahead.
obviously they chose the name to have like an impact, right? When you talk about this, oh, these are the legends. They're like,
Uh huh.
it's a legend spot that's being passed on effectively from one major to after the other. It's like it has impact just because it's like a strong word. It's being associated with like something like meaningful, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really feel that meaningful at the moment.
Like I'll put it this way: QB Fire qualified, Virtus Pro got dumped. There's only one team I'd actually attribute the word legends to in that
Yes,
scenario, though, right?
yes,
Like it'd still be Virtus Pro, wouldn't be QB Fire. Like, listen, I'm not a true hater of QB Fire because I think they legitimately like played well enough to deserve their spot. Beat VP, beat Gambit, beat Mouse. right? That's legit.
Right.
Play way better than Virtus Pro. The Virtus Pro are legends, for QB Fire or not.
Yes. No, I agree. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. They definitely should come up with a different term. I
Yeah,
mean, ideally, they revamp the entire system. They get rid of the
yeah,
legend status, and do something more merit based.
yeah.
O- o-
For that,
Obviously, they're not going to copy the Dota Pro Circuit
yeah,
format
Guy's
because,
obviously a spiteful person.
yeah, as you mentioned,
Whoever's doing it.
and I mean, honestly, Dota is the same. Like, they were so reluctant to implement majors in the first place, or minors for that matter. Like, they took
Yeah,
so long to do that, and then when they did it, it felt very
good.
reluctant. I mean, it felt good, but it also felt like they were just like trying not to.
God damn that CS:GO guy got us this time.
Yes.
Get him next time. Like, come on, guys, all on the same team.
I think in CS:GO, it's at this stage sort of onto other organizers to pressure the majors into becoming better events, because that's ultimately what worked in Dota. Like
Hmm.
in Dota, for example, Epicenter flew out teams first class or like business class, right? The major
Yeah.
afterwards, Valve immediately, well, fuck, now we have to fly them out business class as well. It's
Hmm.
obviously that's like a very minor, like technically minor thing, very expensive, but technically minor thing to
Yeah.
like talk about. But it's like the mindset that other organizers can pressure Valve into doing better, is something that I think needs to happen in CS:GO as well. But as I say that, obviously, if you're like an event organizer and you think you can get away with hosting a best of one event, I mean, you're probably gonna go with that because it's so much cheaper than doing like a secondary stream or adding like
Hmm.
2 more days of playtime,
Yeah.
whatever.
But I mean, even even though you say that, like some event organizers are like shifting away from Valve. Like DreamHack
No,
obviously
true.
did
Yeah.
like DreamHack did like change the way the best of three worked, and then both ESL and DreamHack actually have good seating now. So you're not gonna have this fuck up seating like the Valve majors do. And Star Ladder's like just straight up like, yeah, we'll use the system, but we'll make it best of three. Like that's already way better than what we have here.
Yeah, they announced it today, right?
Yeah,
And also the team lineup. No, it was
and the
a
team lineup is fucking amazing.
it's
Like,
sick. No, 100%. And I think this is what needs to keep on happening. Like consistently, effectively, every event that's not a major needs to continue being better or just as good as a major in terms of prestige, or again, possibly even be better than them, right? Because ultimately, that's I think the only way to force Valve's hand and be able to, well, fuck you guys. If you want to be like an actual major, this is what you need to like do, and the
you
community
need to
needs to,
improve. Like,
yeah, community needs to expect these standards from Valve as well. But it's a difficult process because, as you said, there seems to be some sort of like spiteful, stubborn person in charge of all of this. Because these
it
issues
feels
that
like
we're
it,
talking
doesn't
about,
it?
yeah, because these issues that we've been talking about, they've existed for years at this stage. Obviously, the whole scheduling after the player break kind of only emerged like what last year,
Yeah.
but
So like, not that's like forgivable, right? Like they didn't know it was gonna happen.
yeah.
Like,
But no, the bad format is definitely something that has been talked a lot about. Again, I very vividly remembered when Gambit was when they first reached legend status in what was it?
that
ESL
was
One
so
Cologne, was
sketchy.
it? Was it ESL One
God.
Cologne?
Yeah, yeah. It was
Just
like,
winning two best of ones, and I was like, fuck me. How can a team not only do they reach top eight by winning two best of ones, which I think is already like a huge no in terms of formats, but they
mhm.
guaranteed an invite to the next major, which I think is so stupid.
Not only did they do that, they did it against teams that had stand-ins. Come on, what is this?
Well, all right, let's talk about the actual event then, in terms of
Okay.
performances, teams, and maybe even results. Let's talk about some of the teams that have been eliminated just briefly because I think it's worth talking about them. So the big ones obviously is Charlotte's North. I think most people expect the Danish shuffle after this
Yeah,
major.
people are talking about it a lot.
Yeah,
I don't actually know if Astralis would do it because apparently the scrim results are very good or whatever. Fuck. But like
we just
the
have
only
to
thing
we just have to wait for Device to be on fire again.
yeah,
That
like
that's when they're gonna that's when they're gonna be
let's
hot.
let's I actually think it's like fair if they really believe that if Device gets back to form, they'll be fine. Just because Device was one of the best players last year and he had an injury, so it's like it seems that you have to give him some leeway because of the injury thing. But obviously there you can make a bunch of shuffles here because I definitely think North needs to change, and I think Astralis needs even Astralis. You can go that way, but I still think Astralis should probably change.
All right. All right. Then we have Well, Team Liquid is a bit of a shame. Obviously, they also were forced to play with a stand-in, but
Yeah,
I
so
thought
it's
that,
hard for me to like hate on them. Like they
yeah.
play pretty good with the stand-in.
But of course, I think the biggest story at this event, or one of the big stories at on the first couple of days at least, was Virtus Pro. I think just based on reading sentiments from people on Twitter, listening to the to broadcast, and just also my own expectations and thoughts, I think most people would say that despite them having like one of the most legendary runs in history of CS, with this roster,
Time
uh,
to mercy kill it.
effectively,
Yeah,
I mean this roster is just currently not
S-
doing themselves a service by dragging
sticking
themselves from
together.
event to event. Yeah.
Like yeah, it's I. I'll point this out. Like I do like it when like players stick around even when they're not good anymore and keep trying because it shows like a level of like determination. Shows a level of like competitiveness. But this team's got, but that doesn't mean they have to stick together, especially in like a team format. Man, you gotta change at some point.
Yeah.
And listen, they've already done the impossible. They've done this for like 5 years, longer than anybody else in esports history, basically. And I feel like it's time to change it up. Like clearly at this point, like this 5-man roster, we've given it like so much time to like get it together. We only had Epicenter in like the last like few months, 6, 7 months, eight, a shitload of months, like 10 months at this point. Like
We'll still talk about Epicenter as well. North.
North, yeah. North talking about it years later. We always had Epicenter. That was with Reno. Still counts. Like, um, but yeah, like it's you gotta let that go. You gotta change because it feels like it's just sad at this point. Like it's not even fun shit talking Virtus
No,
Pro.
it really
Like
isn't because you've seen like it's not like it's a good team. Like it's a group of guys that are just really good, not only at the game but also just really good people. Obviously, they like really likable personas, and you've seen them all be the best, effectively at one point or another in history,
uh-huh.
or at the very least one of the best.
Yeah.
So it's rough to see this team like struggle because effectively they just want to. It's not. It's not like they're trying. Like for example, I mean, I think it's like let's compare it to EG and Dota. It's not like
Yeah.
they're just trying to like desperately, or rather, they are trying to desperately stick together because they're also friends. They're like just like a family, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you look at EG Dota, they're trying to like get success by like trying to like I don't know stack skill on top of one another without actually trying to like you know
Solve
uh,
the actual problems that have been
solve
there forever.
exactly. But with this team, it's not like there's like a problem that's always existed with this team. It's just that
It,
I mean the times.
like,
I feel
like
like the times just stop. Like sometimes it just doesn't work out anymore.
they've gotten away with like being good again by switching roles over and over and over again. It
Yeah.
happened for like 3 or 4 years. Like basically, it's like what EG is trying to do now, except EG was never hasn't proved itself to be successful yet in doing that. But like this Red Pro's done it for years. But like we've already gone through like 2 roster like role shuffles for this team, and all you got out of it was like one epicenter
Yeah.
for like 10 months. Like that's time. I think it's finally time to let this one go.
Do you think they
Like
would?
no, because of the contracts. Like I think they'll get paid forever. I I, I think they should. I don't know if they will though. Just because like they're still getting paid, they're still getting invites, but like it's sad because I'm pretty sure like maybe the players in the team even want to do it, but they basically signed on to a presidential term or
What if?
whatever.
What if? And honestly, I wouldn't put it past VP. Like for all the jokes I've made about ES Force, but
Yeah.
I think that VP definitely have like a lot of like moral, like they have a very high moral standard when it comes to treating their players.
Hmm.
At least Sneg has like a very
He has very strong opinions about that.
yes.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't put it past them honestly to honor the contracts despite players potentially being kicked from the team. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, well, I mean, if you want, you could just like sit out your contract for like. I mean, obviously, technically, you could always do that because that's
Yeah.
part of the contract. But
Hmm.
I could see them trying to find a solution so that nobody gets left out in the cold. Effectively, maybe they'll obviously have to find a new team, but they would still technically be paid very well, and what yada yada
Hmm.
yada.
Well, we'll have to see. I feel I feel like they definitely should, but like, basically, do you see the task suite? Basically, it's like he's promising like brimstone and fire. Like, we're gonna come back. Swear to God, this will be the event.
I've heard this
This
so
is the.
often. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it worked a
I
bunch
mean,
of times
it's
before
worked
that.
out enough. Yeah, it's worked out a lot of
But it's
times
like
for.
at this point, like this feels like This is the saddest one. So it's like,
Yes.
oh God.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So man, just talk about Versus Pro is sad.
Yeah. Let's talk about some more uplifting news. Let's talk about the top 8, the actual
Alright.
legends now, the legends that will compete at the new champion stage. Stupid naming, honestly. Let's talk about the matchups. So we have FaZe versus Mousesports. I don't think that anybody ever would. Would you ever? What would have to happen for you to bet on Mouse over FaZe in this matchup?
Well, Mouse were close last time at ECS, but like basically at that tournament and this tournament, what we've basically seen is like Mouse depends a shitload on players showing up, particularly Oscar, but definitely on Sunny and Ropes too. So I actually don't. If I knew like all of them were showing up 100%, maybe I could bet on Mouse Sports. But this everything I've seen, everything they've shown me is like it's so dependent on skill that it really doesn't have a second backup plan. Like, and even then, like they almost lost. I think they did lose. Yeah, they lost to QB Fire. They choked. They choked super hard in that in the group stage, right? Well, they were up 13-2.
Yeah.
And then they choked away the T side.
Yeah, they stole.
And like it wasn't just like individual skill that fucked them up. It was the fact that like their calls, they had no calls. They didn't really even try to use an execute. Not really. Like they tried a few times and they gave up. It's like the team itself is like, I feel like they're much more likely to choke on a big stage than FaZe are at this point, and because they're relying on skill, like skill, famously, like you're much more likely to choke on that, and a bunch of these guys are like inexperienced, and then you're up against like this fucking superstars of the game.
Yeah, I feel like the thing is, for me, if you're relying on skill against FaZe, you're most likely to lose, in my opinion, because I think you're not. Like, how often are you going to outskill FaZe? Unless FaZe, like all of them, just don't show up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty low fucking chance.
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely hard for Mouse.
There's that. Navi QB Fire. How do you feel about QB Fire's chances to go even further? Obviously, this is the first time we're going to see them in a best of 3 at this event, but do you think they have a chance against their CIS brethren?
I don't think so. Listen, I respect what they did, but a lot of it was because like they played less under pressure than their counterparts, and like they had like heart, which is kind of a weird concept. But basically, they stuck it in, and they didn't give up, and that's not going to be enough against Simple.
I mean, no,
it's hard, right? But I will say the fact that Navi was so extremely inconsistent, either they dominated or they got fucking dominated. Now there is a small chance there, but I still think Navi should win this out.
Yeah, for sure. G2 Cloud9. We did see that at least the best of 1 in the group stage.
Yep.
And
definitely saw that. Definitely saw Cloud9 get stomped.
I was just about to say, dare I say that was not promising for Cloud9 at all. Do you think this is going to be just a repeat of that in basically 2 quick games, or do you think the fact that they're going to have at least their own map pick? Actually, wait. Well, no, yeah, but still. Do you think that they can at least force out a game 3 here?
I don't think so, just because I feel like Scadudo is going to go missing. He always goes missing during the playoffs.
Yeah.
And so you can't have your Opera go missing when you have Kenny S on the other side of the fucking server. On top of that, Shox is having a really good tournament.
Shox is gone.
He's basically returned, right?
He's back.
Resurrection.
Dare I say it? He's back.
Yeah, like he's basically had a resurrection here.
Yeah.
So that's another problem for Cloud9. I will say I think they have victory conditions. The 2 biggest are probably going to be Stewie. If he can do what he did in the group stage after like he woke the fuck up and started beating the shit out of people.
I was just about to say, I don't think his group stage was necessarily like, I think obviously he had like impressive performances, but I think it was also like on day 1 especially, which is gone. Where the
Yeah, it was
fuck
gone,
was he?
right?
Where the fuck
Yeah,
was
he
he?
was nowhere, right? Fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
And then he was nowhere in Space Soldiers. It was like on the third day that he woke up.
Yeah.
So assuming, so he has a chance. They have a chance if Stewie wakes up because I feel like Stewie is their most impactful player.
No, for
Even
sure.
though Tarek has been their best player throughout this new iteration, I think Stewie's the most impactful one if he gets going. And then their other choice, the other victory condition they have to meet is Rush, because Rush is going to be the guy who's going to be winning the 1vx clutches against Shocks if it gets down to that point. And I think obviously Shocks is favored. Beyond that is like there's a lot of good things to say about this Cloud9 team in terms of like CT setups and T sides, but in general, like I think G2's CT sides will beat their T sides, and I think this is actually be a CT sided game for both teams, but because of the luxury of like having Shocks going off and like stealing those impactful like 1vx rounds, it should naturally favor G2. And like I said, Skadoodle's not going to be here. Right?
Yeah, I fear for Cloud9 just being able to lose in the skill department in pretty much almost every matchup at this point. At this point against G2 at least.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That obviously that's just one particular highlight, and it's you could argue that there was misplay on the other side, but you know that 1v4, 1v3 from Kenny S against what was it, QB Fire.
Yeah.
I think it's a good, like that's a good example of G2 at the moment, in my opinion. Like they're able to clutch these things out. Like they're able to, obviously, especially on Kenny S and Shocks, but they're actually able to, like, be clutch in the clutch moment, which I don't think this team has been for the longest time.
Yeah. I will say this, Cloud9, this iteration of Cloud9 is obviously better, but it's also shown us that they can't beat teams that are better than them, but they can beat all the teams that are worse than them consistently. Whereas like the old Cloud9, yeah. Whereas the old Cloud9, like they had problems with the consistency against the worst teams, but they did have the odd event where they could beat SK, right? But this one they don't really have it. I actually think this Cloud9 is a step up, but they need something a bit more if they want to challenge like the higher up teams, which higher up teams I consider like G2, SK, Cloud9 right now, and obviously we've seen them against G2. I think SK will still have their number, and FaZe famously, like they haven't even gone to 10 rounds against FaZe yet, so like it's bad. And it's bad against FaZe,
and that's why I think I mean, obviously, like you said, Ska needs to show up and not be like invisible. Yes. Because honestly,
like I don't even need him to show up like a superstar level. I just need him to like show up at a consistent level, because I think the other guy, there's enough skill in the other rest of the team that they can make up for that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But if he's literally zero, it's gone.
In this group stage, like I do think he's been playing well enough, but I almost think that Tarek's opping has been. I mean, you know, when they run double op setup, for example, or even when they just give him the op. Honestly, Tarek's wasn't actually that much worse, or at some point even better than Ska's. And I think that's actually
really good too.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's an issue. I do think you want your opper to definitely be the best opper in the team, like consistently. And just for Ska, I mean, obviously,
he's not even like the second best opper in his team. That's like
most of the time, yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, it's the first time he's been a legend. Maybe he's different here. It's a
maybe he's like, maybe he thinks it's all extra credit. Like, I did what I came here to do.
Yeah, effectively. All right,
we'll see.
SK Gaming versus Fnatic. First of all, let me say that I did not expect Fnatic to make it.
Oh yeah, okay.
I did not expect them to make. I do think that given the draft, or given the matchups that they had, I mean, I did expect them to win the ones that they did win. Maybe Gambit was a Gambit. I actually thought that Gambit could or should have won that, but I mean, Fnatic was much more convincing that one. But generally speaking, I mean, Astralis and VP just, I don't know, Fnatic just impressed me much more. Obviously, I mean, nobody expects VP to win these days, and obviously Astralis just has a whole other issues at this event in general. But yeah, Fnatic, I don't know. I don't think they will. I don't think they have a chance against SK either, right? I don't think they give Fnatic, SK a run for their money at all. But
if you look at Fnatic throughout like the end 2017 to now, where they basically made the change to Golden and Lekro, and Golden's become the leader of the team, and he's constructed the team, he's made it more structured. and because of that, he's basically given like Crims new life. Because I feel like Crims is their best player now, and Crims went fucking crazy in the group stages. Like there was it was something ridiculous. Like he won like 30 something kills in like 20 rounds or something stupid.
Oh.
Or something. It was something ridiculous like that. I'm not exactly sure, but the problem with this Fnatic is like it's I haven't really seen anything that could convince me they could beat teams that are better than them. And even with teams that like even against like an inconsistent team that has like way more firepower, they still lost, like Navi.
Yeah.
It's it's actually hard for me to say where they are at the moment. Like obviously it's great that they've made it to this part of the tournament, and I think they're pretty good. But SK just has way too much teamwork, and that's like the classic like Swedish strength is their teamwork. So SK already hasn't beat there. They haven't beaten individuals, and the only thing Fnatic really has going for them is the fact that they, as a 5-man unit, have practiced more. But it's not like SK stand-ins never played with SK. In fact, they played with SK for like 8 months or some shit. Like Phelps, even though the rules have changed, Phelps should know what to do.
Right.
Like I feel like Fnatic would have a better chance against Cloud9, Mouse, maybe Navi, but like not against SK, not against FaZe.
No, 100%. This draw is definitely like I think there are 3 teams only that would straight up lose here, right? FaZe, G2, SK.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Like everybody else, they have like a chance against.
Yes, exactly. But obviously, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's like
ultimately, if you want to win, you obviously want to or have to beat everybody.
you don't have to beat everybody, but you have to be like
Or
one of
be
the
able
best
to beat
teams at
everybody.
least. Yeah, be able to.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they'd be able to beat everybody, but
No, I don't think so either.
mm-hmm.
Well, then give me a prediction on who's gonna win, or at the very least, who's gonna make the finals and who's gonna win.
I think FaZe and GT will make the finals, and I think FaZe wins. And the reason I think that is because SK have a legitimately like bad matchup against G2. And G2 obviously now has shocks going, so that's another plus. This SK hasn't really practiced that much with Phelps. They've basically said so. So I feel like G2 should win that. But obviously, I personally I prefer a FaZe SK finals because I want to see if FaZe can actually get over their fucking like SK problem.
Yes.
Even though it's like with a different player, I'd much rather see that.
Yes.
But even in the case of FaZe G2, I think FaZe are in good spirits right now. I think they have everything they need to win this major, and they have the bracket to do it. So I'm going with FaZe.
No, I agree with that. I'm definitely gonna go with FaZe. I don't think, I guess the closest that would come to like maybe upsetting FaZe here would be Navi, I guess, but I feel like Navi would have to like step it up like tenfold to beat.
Yeah,
FaZe.
a shitload.
Yeah,
Oh my
or
god,
like
they
FaZe
are
would have
so
to like
off.
shit the bed like so hard, right?
Yeah.
But no, I think SK. I think SK has much more stumble potential here. Obviously, like you mentioned, I mean, they also have a stand-in, or rather, they have to play with Phelps, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I definitely think it's going to be G2, and potentially, honestly, I think it would be better for them. I mean, while I do want to see FaZe get over their SK sort of like slump,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's almost better if they don't do it here because it's always going to have the asterisk because SK play with a stand-in. And I don't
Yeah,
think I think if you're FaZe, you don't want that either. Like I almost think they don't want to beat them here.
it's kind of weird, right? Because like, this used to happen with very old NIP and the very old LDLC Titan games lineup. Or what happened was they played on a LAN and the game didn't matter for NIP because they already qualified or something. So they just put it out, and then that French team, which never beat the NIP, finally won. They're like, "Oh, we finally did it! We can do it!" And then they gained confidence, and then they beat them the next time when it did matter. So it may or may not matter. I don't
Right.
really know, but it's like obviously you'd much rather see them play against the Bolts lineup and then win there. That's way more sick, right?
Exactly.
Way more sick.
And that's why I almost want to like. It's not even for whether or not it's gonna give FaZe the confidence or whether it affects them at all, but more so the narrative. Because if we have this win now, or if we have this matchup now and they do win against them, we will want to see that matchup again because there's going to be that asterisk where we do talk
Uh-huh.
about this matchup. So
Yeah.
I definitely don't want them to meet now. Now that I think about it, I don't want them to meet in the finals now. As fun as fun as it would be, I do think GT would put up just as much of a good fight
Yeah.
against FaZe. Potentially better again because they are in form at the moment. Sharks and Kenny S are popping off.
Pretty good.
So I'm waiting. I mean, I think that would be an exciting matchup. You know, Guardian Kenny S.
Yeah. A classic,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah. Be pretty good. And then obviously like FaZe has all those players that all FaZe have almost all of the best players that have never won a major in one team.
Yeah.
Kerrigan, Guardian, Nico, Rain. Only guy there that had a shitload of majors is Olaf Meister. Greedy bastard. Like, what is this?
I mean, he's gonna. Oh no, almost.
He's gonna be the first to win like multiple majors.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Almost made a bad meme, but he's gonna inject the winning mentality into this team. Like this is how you win a major, guys.
I've been here before.
Yeah.
I've done it twice.
I know
like,
the stage, guys.
Like he I hope that happens. I hope he like teaches them the ability to play composed under pressure.
Hopefully.
We'll see.
Anyway, I think this should wrap up the show. We've talked about it for 2.5 hours now. God damn it, Steven. How do we do it every time? I don't know how.
No.
It's just we just have too much fun here, I believe.
Uh-huh.
It's been a lot of fun. 2.5 hours. For those of you who are still sticking around, goddamn, how do you still stick around after 2.5 hours? I don't know. We've had a lot of fun. We're gonna definitely be back. I say this every time, but every time I keep delaying the show even further. So who knows? Hopefully we can do this for Katowice again. Obviously, I would want to talk about the major there. There's a couple of more events obviously coming up. The roster shuffle soon in China, and of course the big roster lock period in Dota in general is coming up. So those are going to be very big talking points in the coming weeks. Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for joining me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter at SuchiWriter, at Skim Gaming. Check out his work at VP Esports.com.
VP. Yep.
VPesports.com, yeah. You can't check out my work anymore because I don't work for DotaBuff anymore. But actually, I guess you can still check it out there because it's still online. So you'd think I have more time now that I'm technically unemployed, but life is
Doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah. All right. We'll try to be back as soon as possible. I can't make any promises. I keep disappointing Steven more so than you guys, just so you guys know. But this has been fun, and we'll try to be back. See you guys later.